Chapter 216. Catherine Palace. No, it should be the former Catherine Palace. Beside the ruins of the current Catherine Palace, a beautiful woman wearing a nurse's uniform came here under the moonlight. Stop. Tell me where you belong. The soldiers guarding here noticed the woman's arrival from the beginning, but because of her clothes and because she didn't get too close to the ruins, the soldiers didn't put too much attention on her. But as soon as the beautiful woman showed her intention to get close to the ruins, these dutiful soldiers immediately raised their rifles and shouted a warning. Calm down. I'm from the imperial capital, Pandoragon. I'm under the orders of the emperor. May I ask who's in charge here? I must see him immediately. This is about the safety of the two knights of the Round Table who were captured by the enemy. Facing the gun, the beautiful woman didn't panic. Instead, she calmly took out an identification card from her pocket and said her purpose. What? From the imperial capital, Pandoragon? Sure enough, when the beautiful woman took the initiative to reveal her identity, the stunned soldiers did not dare to be negligent. They hurriedly took the identification card respectfully, and two of them ran all the way to the temporary camp set up next to the ruins. A few minutes later, a group of people ran out of the temporary camp, led by the two soldiers. Oh, it seems that it's still useful. Very good. This mission should be able to find a good chess piece. After the beautiful woman's eyes turned around in the crowd, she looked to the south, the country called Langlanshi. The news of the capture of the Knight of the Round Table was secretly spread by Xion's men. From the first night of the news, everyone's attitude was disbelief, and even ridiculed that it was an idiot. In the joking laughter, when it came to the live broadcast of the interrogation of the Knight of the Round Table, the third night kino, that turned into shock, disbelief, and even disbelief. Really? Is this true? Oh my God! The Knight of the Round Table was actually captured by us. When did this happen? Amidst the countless questions, a voice quietly rang out. No matter how it was captured. Anyway, now we're in Langlanshi. The European Union is undoubtedly the greatest country. Long live Langangxi. In an instant, the crowd fell silent. However, this state did not last for more than a few seconds. The silence was torn apart by the increasingly fanatical faces of the people, and the shouts that were enough to drown out all other sounds. General, our live broadcast was very successful. The public support for our coalition army has increased from 48% to 55%, and with the broadcast of the live broadcast, the support rate may continue to increase by 3% every day until it reaches our estimated peak of 65%. Only then will the increase slow down. Behind Zahn, a stern-looking male follower was respectfully reporting on the reversal of the poor performance of the Alliance Army after the live broadcast of the trial of the Knight of the Round Table. Yes, I got it. They continued to follow the original plan. Since our ally is so generous as to let us have the spoils of war for the time being, then we should use this to our advantage and consolidate our position. With his hand behind his back, Xion looked up at the screen and slowly nodded. Yes, in that case, I will take my leave first. The follower responded and turned to leave Xion's office. The Knight of the Round Table? The once insufferably arrogant knight had actually been defeated by the hands of his own princess. Fate is really a goddess who likes to play with people's hearts. Xion sighed, but then revealed a smile that revealed a hint of ambition. But because of this, the goddess of fate is so charming that people can't help but worship under her skirt. Ha! The Council of 40. This time I'm going to make the first move. What are you guys going to do? The public trial was here. Perhaps it was because the live broadcast was not satisfying enough. Or perhaps the Council of 40 did not report to Xion and privately spread the news of the capture of the Knight of the Round Table to the extent that everyone knew. Or perhaps the Council of 40 simply did not believe that Xion's side could capture the strongest knight of the Round Table of the Britannia Empire. Or perhaps there were some among them who couldn't bear to see Xion's side monopolizing such a huge contribution, so they purposely made this request. But no matter what the reason was, Xion, Zero, and even Ray Minkai did not reject this request. On the contrary, they very much agreed with this request and even took the initiative to take on the role of escorting the Knight of the Round Table to the capital. Originally, this request was rejected from the beginning, but under the full request of General Xian, the Council of 40 finally approved this request. Therefore, the prisoner carriage escorting the Knight of the Round Table Kino Bienbrook and Nanette Eniacolum set off from White Wolf Fort under the escort of the Rogue Brigade, driven by the Black Knight Regiment. Of course, this was not the full strength of the escort brigade. Alexander's troops, who were flanking, were led by Archimedes. They hid in the forest along the road and followed the escort brigade in a stealthy manner in order to provide support. In addition, on the river along the road, there was a small boat that swayed behind the escort brigade. And the passengers of this small boat were naturally Ray Minkai and Zero, as well as a white cat lying lazily in the driver's seat, not wanting to move at all. What a surprise. Your Excellency Knight. I didn't expect you to be able to tame that witch. Sitting in the cabin, Zero tilted her head and looked at the forest. Which? Ray Minkai, who was holding the rudder, was puzzled for a moment before he realized, "You mean Her Highness Cornelia?" "Of course. I didn't expect that Cornelia Eli Britannia, who is known as the witch on the battlefield, was tamed by you. That's amazing. Your Excellency Knight." Zero smiled lightly, her words full of ridicule. "It's not good to secretly make fun of your sister. Aren't you afraid that I'll complain?" Ray Minkai shook his head and did not respond. "Will you complain?" Zero retorted. Ray Minkai pretended to be deep in thought and shook his head. "No. If I complain, I'm afraid even UFFI won't let me off." "Huh, that's right. Your Excellency Knight. It seems that you're very popular with princesses." Zero laughed a few times. "Why are you calling me Your Excellency Knight now?" Zero. "No, it's just a moment of emotion." Minkai. Zero's gaze once again fell on the forest on the side of the river. On the other side of the forest, it was the main road to the capital of Langlan Shi Kingdom. The escort team followed this main road and headed towards the capital. The opportunity I've been waiting for is coming. I believe that the next movement will not be small. Of course, if the Emperor still wants the face of the Empire, he will naturally send people to take them away. That's true. Zero coldly snorted and laughed at herself. In the end, I am him and he is me. We can all think of what the other party thinks, so he will send people. But I don't know who he will send. Is it the remaining Knight of the Round Table? Or the man and woman who appeared with him and took everything away from me? Ray Minkai nodded and said his thoughts. I'm afraid it should be that man and woman. You know, in the previous battle, whether it was the Lion Fong or the Pirate Gouda, they have exposed their existence and their performance that is far superior to the Nightmare. In this case, not to mention you or the Emperor, even I will subconsciously choose a more powerful force to fight against such an existence. So, what we are going to face next is the unknown power in the hands of that man and woman. No, it's not unknown. The power in the hands of that man and woman, you have seen it before. In the capital of this state, and in Kyushu, that man and woman have appeared in the vicinity. Lei Minkai's words caused Zero's body to tremble, and he subconsciously exclaimed, "What? That horrible monster is actually their masterpiece." Yes, if they're going to make a move this time, then you should understand what this means. In front of the river, there seemed to be a trace of human building. Lei Minkai's gaze also became meaningful because of this. Zero opened his mouth, stood up from his seat, sat down again, stood up again, and finally sat back in his seat. Is it too late now? What do you think? Ray Minkai asked. Zero shook his head. They knew that even if they informed Xian that the enemy was about to appear, Xian probably wouldn't immediately evacuate the people who were rushing over. Although there was some incomplete information in the hands of the man and woman, there was probably no one else who knew the deepest about it, except for Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai sighed. Do your best. If the battle really starts in the city, the Black Knight Regiment will immediately enter the mission of covering the evacuation of the citizens. Don't stay in the battle area. In the face of that kind of power, I'm afraid that other than Karen's Red Lotus 2, the other Nightmare won't play much of a role. Although this is not what I want, this is the only way. After the battle starts, The Red Lotus 2 will support the long-toothed lion, and the rest of the nightmare will enter the rescue mission on the spot. After the rescue mission is over, they will immediately enter the battle to support you. Although Ray Minkai had already made it clear that ordinary Nightmare could not participate in the battle with the forces of the abyss that might appear, Zero still made arrangements to participate in the battle. Okay, Zero, when the time comes, you can adapt according to the situation. I will try my best to lead them to the city. But after the battle begins, I hope you can bring the 2 Knights of the Round Table out at the first possible moment and hand them over to our kid and the others who are hiding outside the city so that they can return to White Wolf Fort as soon as possible. Kai Zero subconsciously wanted to refute Ray Minkai, but he was stunned in the next moment, because he thought of a possibility. If the enemy really had the ability to cause a ruckus in the capital of Langlanshi country, then the escort team that was attacked would naturally withdraw from the capital and return to White Wolf Fort. Therefore, at this time, the best time to snatch people should be the moment the escort team was attacked and had just evacuated from the capital. Thinking of this, Zero also figured out the key to everything. This is really a heavy responsibility. Your Excellency Knight. Zero chuckled a few times, but there was no trace of unwillingness in his words. Yes, it is a heavy responsibility, but I believe you should be able to solve it, Zero. At that time, Akeem and the others will also listen to you. If I have the help of Akeem and the others, I also have some confidence. The outline of the capital gradually became clear. As the distance shortened, the building that was specially decorated with colorful ribbons also appeared in front of the escort team. Is this a festival? Yuching Shinichiro stared blankly at the people who were standing by the roadside and constantly waving the colorful flags and wreaths in their hands. He looked at the colorful ribbons that fell from the top of the building and said in shock, "No matter what, this is a public trial, right? Why does it feel like a New Year's Day?" Karen, who was walking in front of the team, also smiled bitterly. She did not expect such a situation at all. Rotten eggs, stones, rotten bottles, and other things that could be used to embarrass and smash people. Even insulting words. Karen had thought of it before, but she did not expect it to be such a scene. If people who did not know saw it, they might think that this was to welcome the arrival of an important person. This can't be General Jean's arrangement, right? Sean also voiced her doubts. Calm down. This is just a ceremony for the council to welcome a hero. Just follow the original plan and arrive at the venue of the public trial. Fortunately, when the team members were guessing, Zero's voice also sounded, and the team members who had begun to become impetuous also calmed down. This battle formation is really giving me a headache. After stopping the boat at the dock that Jean had arranged in advance, Ray Minkai picked up the lazy white cat, Zero, and walked down the boat. Looking at the scene in front of him, which was undoubtedly like a festival, he smiled bitterly. It seems that the plan we made before has to be revised. No. However, Zero raised an objection. Why? Ray Minkai asked. It's too quiet, isn't it? Zero asked. Ray Minkai was stunned, and then nodded. That's true. At this time, a man in a suit came out from the side, bowed to Ray Minkai and Zero, and said, "Your Excellencies, the General has been waiting for a long time. Please come with me. Let's go. No matter what, we have to meet the General and the council members first. After all, we are also the big heroes of this time." Ray Minkai nodded, looked at Zero, and chuckled. No, I'm not a big hero. In my opinion, in this country, only Sir Knight is a big hero. Zero shook her head, said lightly, and took the lead to board the car. No, maybe others don't know, and even in the eyes of the world, you will be a demon, but in the eyes of someone, you will always be her big hero. Ray Minkai's words made Zero's whole body tremble, and for a long time, she did not say a word. Finally, she seemed to move her lips, but eventually returned to silence. Chapter 217. It's finally here. In a hotel on a famous street, known as the City of Romance, a red-haired man, sitting in a wheelchair, looked at the noise coming from outside the city with a ferocious expression. Azura. This time, You must wait until the order is issued before you can act. A woman in decent casual clothes walked out of the room, came to the balcony where the red-haired man was, and gave the warning with a blank expression. The red-haired man, called Azura, smiled, raised his head slightly, looked at the woman with a cold expression, and said, "Don't worry, Staff Officer Shang. The power this time is so wonderful. I won't release it so quickly. Wonderful things have to go through a brewing process." Azura slowly raised his right hand and clenched his fist in the direction of the noise. "Only in this way can I vent the hatred in my heart. Just wait for me. Damn lion." As the noise got closer and closer, Azura was pushed back into the room by Shang Law. At the same time, in the underground parking lot of this hotel, a group of people with nervous faces were busy around 5 humanoid airframes, which are the humanoid weapons developed by various countries. "Xiaoyinga, I'm very sorry. Due to the tight time, we can only find these nightmare for you to use." And behind the busy crowd, a middle-aged man with sweat on his forehead was trying to explain to the tall man, standing in front of him with a long katana hanging on his waist. "No, although it's only the standard nightmare of the Lanlan West country, it's enough. After all, these are not provided for us to use. Number 3, you have done well enough. Your mission is over. Leave the rest to us." Xiaoyinga, also known as Shin Hyuga Xiaoyinga, as the head of the St. Michael Knight Regiment, one of the 4 knight regiments in Europe, he led some of his subordinates to sneak into the capital of Lanlan West Country through the Empire's secret line in Lanlan West Country at this critical moment. And coming with them, of course, was the Dr. Zasali's right-hand woman, the beautiful Nurse Phyllis. "Xiaoyinga, how are the preparations going?" After the middle-aged man, named number 3, left, Phyllis walked out from the shadows. She didn't want too many irrelevant people to know about her existence. "Lord Special Envoy, the relevant preparations had been completed. However, will the promise that my lord may be fulfilled?" Exion's gaze moved slightly as he asked tentatively. Phyllis didn't answer his question. Instead, he looked at the nightmare that was undergoing preparations and nodded affirmatively. "First of all, I have to clarify something. Those promises were not made by me alone. They were approved by His Majesty himself. So, Xiaoyinga, you can rest assured and give it your all. As a special envoy of the Empire, I will also lend you a hand." "Yes." Exion smiled and bowed slightly to Fei Lizhi. "For the Empire." A few minutes later, in the previous battle, Azura, who had paid the price of losing the lower part of his waist, came to the underground parking lot with Shang Luo's help. "Xia Yingqing." The commotion was getting bigger and bigger. "Isn't it my turn to fight?" As soon as he arrived at the underground parking lot, Azura immediately shouted that he wanted to attack. Exion didn't respond, but looked at Fei Lizhi. Azura, congratulations on gaining power." Fei Lizhi didn't ask Azura's intention, nor did she say anything. Even her bright eyes were particularly cold, as if Azura, who was sitting in a wheelchair, wasn't a human, but an experimental body called a human. Really cold. A rare beauty is actually such an iceberg. Interesting. However, what I'm concerned about now is not you, but the thing in your hand. Come on, quickly give me the power in your hand. Azura wasn't disgusted by Fei Lizhi's indifferent gaze. On the contrary, it aroused a blazing fighting spirit. Perhaps only a human like you can adapt to the doctor's reagent. After sizing up Ashur's undisguised battle intent and craziness, Phyllis sneered coldly. She raised her hand and threw the number 4 reagent that Sisali had asked her to bring to Ashur's arms. "This is reagent number 4, and also the power you're after. However, you have to board the airframe before you can use it. As for how to use it, I believe you've already seen it." Azura picked up the reagent that fell into his arms. After feeling around it with both hands, he looked at the needle that popped out and smiled. "Yes. I just have to stick these needles in my body, right?" "Yes. If you want to adapt to the reagent faster, then I suggest you stick it in your carotid artery." After saying that, Fei Lizhi turned around and prepared to leave. "Wait, Sir Special Envoy, don't you want to continue watching?" Exion suddenly stopped Fei Lizhi. "Continue watching? Do you need it?" Fei Lizzie tilted her head slightly and sneered. To me, there are only two results, success or failure. Other than that, what else is there for me to miss? But Sir Special Envoy, how will you report the situation to His Majesty? Shang Luo also spoke at this time. Report? Hee. Is there a need? Your Majesty doesn't care about the victory of this battle. All you need to do is to complete the task given by His Majesty. The noise on the street was getting closer and closer. Even the sound caused by the movements of the Black Knight Regiment's airframe was getting clearer and clearer. Everyone, pay attention to the surrounding situation. The critical moment has arrived. As the frontline commander, Fan gave the latest order with a tense face. He didn't understand why Zero, who had always been the frontline commander, would suddenly hand over this heavy responsibility to him. But when it came down to it, he could only bite the bullet and do it. Fan, did you find something wrong? The Red Lotus second style walking at the front of the team suddenly slowed down, and Karen's voice also sounded in the communication channel. There's something wrong. It's just that. Fan frowned, but did not speak out the worry in her heart. But what? Karen pressed and subconsciously muttered to herself. To be honest, I have a very strange feeling. Moreover, I also feel that this feeling seems to have appeared somewhere before. Yes. Karen is right. I also have this feeling. Yuqing Shinichiro, who was next to the team, also sneaked into the communication channel and shouted repeatedly. Perhaps. Fan smiled bitterly a few times. Just as she was about to open her mouth to comfort her team members, unexpectedly, a shocking change happened. Boom! All of a sudden, a series of explosions occurred in the houses on both sides in front of them. Boom! 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 In just a blink of an eye, the houses that were full of ribbons a few seconds ago were turned into ashes in the explosion. Flames, thick smoke, screams, and cries for help became the main theme at this moment. They really came. Enemy attack. Everyone, shrink the defense. Everyone maintain the defensive formation and retreat slowly. Karen. Fan was shocked and immediately issued the order according to the original plan. Understood. Fan, you guys retreat first. Without any explanation, Karen suddenly accelerated with the Red Lotus second style and jumped onto the roofs of the houses on both sides of the road in one breath. Fan, behind you, there are enemies at 5 o'clock. Be careful. Understood. Karen, I'll leave this to you. Let's retreat. The sudden explosion quickly spread from the location of the attack to the entire capital of Langlon West like a plague. In the past, this capital that was known as the City of Romance had become a paradise of panic at this moment. The Britannia Empire has attacked the capital. The council has been captured. The army has completely surrendered. All sorts of rumors sprung up like bamboo shoots after the rain, and they grew and spread wantonly in this city that was gradually occupied by panic and riots. Boom! On the street that was closer to the explosion site, before the panicked crowd could figure out the truth of the matter, a series of gunshots, blood flowers, and people lying in pools of blood deeply pierced the fragile hearts of the people. At this moment, chaos suddenly arose. It has begun, a feast of death. Standing on the top floor of the hotel, holding the hilt of the katana in his hand, he looked coldly at the panicked people below who were driven away by gunshots and explosions, and said coldly, Xianga, Azura has attacked. Shang Lao, who had always been standing behind him, bowed slightly and said, Is that so? Then let us give Azura, who is about to become a hero, a piece of death music. How about it? Shang. Shin's voice suddenly raised a few pitches, as if he was reciting his thoughts like a poem. Shang Lao's expression changed slightly, but he still responded respectfully. It's Azura's honor. Then let's go. It's rare that 03 and the others spent so much effort to let our nightmare move freely in this boring city. We can't waste their efforts. Yes, my lord. Boom. Thick smoke billowed, and flames soared to the sky. The Black Knight Regiment followed the original plan and retreated with the prison van carrying the two Round Table Knights, but not long after, they were attacked by some unknown armed people equipped with anti-armor rocket launchers. Fan, it's the enemy. Can you fire? Yuching Shinichiro's sharp eyes discovered an enemy hiding in a house not far away, preparing to fire at them with a rocket launcher in his hand. No, this is still the city. If we fire rashly, I'm afraid we'll hurt the innocent. Fan gritted his teeth, and, in the end, he still chose to passively defend. Fortunately, their passivity did not last long. How unsightly. Fan, I didn't expect that after following me for so long, you still haven't learned much. This voice? It's Zero. You're here? Fan was stunned, and then said in surprise, Yes, I'm here, and with me are our allies. As soon as Zero's voice fell, gunshots suddenly sounded from the houses around the Black Knight Regiment. Obviously, the unknown armed people lurking there were being cleared by the special forces that were already prepared. Okay, let's leave the infantry matters to them. Now, take our guests back the way you came. After Zero had Sean and the others return the way they came, she turned off the communication and looked at Lei Minkai, who had been leisurely sitting on a chair since they came ashore. Sometimes he would raise a cup of tea, and sometimes he would play with a white cat. Knight, isn't it your turn now? Lei Minkai shook his head slightly, but did not say anything. Instead, the white cat Zero replaced Lei Minkai to answer Zero's question. The space here is too small. As long as I change back to my original form, I'm afraid this city will be in ruins. Too small. A surprised voice came from behind the two of them. Lei Minkai and Zero looked back and found that it was Zan. General, why are you here instead of commanding the evacuation of the people? Zero saw that according to the original plan, Xian was supposed to supervise the evacuation of the people and secretly eliminate the spies lurking in Langlon West Country. So he mercilessly mocked him. No, General Zero, you can't say that. Everything has been arranged. The only role I can play is to oversee the overall situation. So, it's the same wherever I am. Xian naturally had a way to resolve Zero's mockery. Hee, is that so? I hope that after we're done here, there won't be any problems on General Xian's side. In the face of Zero's doubts, Xian of course patted his chest and made a promise. Roar! At this moment, a roar that sounded like metal clashing and a wild beast tore through the sky and instantly swept through the entire city of romance. Woo! Roar! Upon hearing the roar and the aura that followed it, the white cat state Zero, which was originally lazy, suddenly jumped up on the spot, all the fur on its body standing up. It was an aura that made people feel uncomfortable all over, and even made some people with weaker mental fortitude feel weak in their legs. Kai, it's them. White Cat Zero turned its head and growled at Lei Minkai. After a few leaps, it landed on the railing of the balcony and stared coldly at the location of the initial attack. It seems that it's my turn. Lei Minkai turned his palm and took out his personal terminal. After letting it check the surrounding abyss, he nodded slightly. But Your Excellency just said that if a battle were to happen here, this city would be turned into ruins. Xian raised his doubts. Is that so? Lei Minkai smiled gently and suddenly took a step forward. He rushed to the balcony like a gust of wind. As he reached out to hold the white cat Zero, he jumped down from the balcony without hesitation and disappeared in front of Xian, Zero, and the others. Your Excellency, Lei Minkai. The next moment, in the astonished voice of Xian and the others, a nightmare painted in white and gold and with a pair of sparkling green wings on its back rose into the sky. In the blink of an eye, it flew in the direction of the roar. Aha! Interesting. Nightmare Lancelot. I didn't expect Kai to have such a trick up his sleeve. Your Excellency, this city of romance should be able to be saved. Zero looked at Lancelot, who had almost turned into a stream of light, and laughed loudly. Chapter 218. Tut 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 tut. In the flames, there was a sudden gust of wind. Amidst the wind that tore apart the flames that engulfed the houses, there were even cannonballs that whistled straight ahead, forcing Karen to drive her beloved machine, the second style of the Red Lotus, to retreat continuously. As the second style of the Red Lotus retreated, although the cannonballs that broke through the flames and tore apart the thick smoke did not hit the second style of the Red Lotus, they hit the wreckage of the surrounding houses and even lost their momentum. The moment they landed on the ground, there was a burst of violent explosions. The intensity of the explosions made Karen unable to believe that this was the power that could be exerted by the standard firearms owned by the Nightmare. Tut, 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 tut. Before the second style of the Red Lotus, which was retreating rapidly, could stand firm, the enemy hidden in the thick smoke launched another attack. Exactly the same as before, the cannonballs that kept whistling came head-on again. Karen, who had seen the true power of these cannonballs, did not dare to take the seemingly endless offensive head-on. She could only subconsciously adopt the same strategy as before. Move around, wait for an opportunity to move. At the same time, it also created time for Fan and the others who were retreating from the city. Therefore, even if the enemy hidden in the thick smoke and deep in the flames launched a sharp attack, the flexible second style of the Red Lotus under Karen's control was still able to maintain an unscathed posture, cautiously shuttling through the enemy's hail of bullets. However, the persistence of the second style of the Red Lotus until now had already dissatisfied the enemy hidden behind the thick smoke and flames. How flexible! Then how about this? Along with a voice that was obviously suppressing his anger, a large hand broke through the thick smoke. With lightning speed, it struck towards the second form of the Red Lotus, who was using the small paths between the buildings to move nimbly, creating a lightning-like afterimage. Whoosh! The moment a heavy but somewhat crisp sound rang out, the path in front of the second style of the Red Lotus was cut off. And what cut off the path ahead was a steel cable the size of a fist and a hook claw connected to it. Karen was shocked at first, but in the next second, she had already changed into a cautious face, trying to drive the second style of the Red Lotus to a safe distance step by step. However, the menacing enemy did not give her such a chance, allowing the second style of the Red Lotus to retreat to a safe distance intact. Boom! So, as soon as the second style of the Red Lotus dodged the incoming hook, a shadow suddenly rushed out from behind the hook that hit the ground, charging straight at the second style of the Red Lotus, that had just leaped into the air and had yet to change direction, let alone borrow strength from the second style of the Red Lotus. Not good. Seeing that the hook that suddenly appeared was about to hit the vital part of the two styles of the Red Lotus, Karen made a prompt decision. She quickly controlled the two styles of the Red Lotus to cross her hands and block her chest, trying to offset the hook attack that was coming at the vital part of the two styles of the Red Lotus. Although Karen's plan was well thought out, Karen tried to sacrifice her arms in exchange for the survival of the second style of the Red Lotus. But the enemy couldn't just watch her plan come true. As a result, two flames appeared. Under Karen's incredulous gaze, he appeared behind the claw. Propeller? How could this be? They actually installed thrusters on the claws. Karen's voice was full of shock and disbelief. In the next moment, when the two styles of the Red Lotus was about to be hit, a shadow descended from the sky and blocked in front of the two styles of the Red Lotus. Boom! Two sounds that sounded like the collision of metals, and the sound of morning bells and evening drums echoed continuously, shaking Karen's somewhat messy mind clean. Karen, be careful. This isn't an ordinary nightmare. With the appearance of the white and gold painted nightmare that blocked the two styles of the Red Lotus, a voice that made Karen feel strange yet somewhat familiar sounded. Knight, Ray Minkai, leader? In surprise, Karen's reaction was not slow by more than a few beats. On the contrary, her movements were 3 times faster than her limit. It's just that she didn't have time to deal with this matter now. Under Karen's control, the two styles of the Red Lotus quickly stood up again and stood next to the nightmare that suddenly appeared and rescued the two styles of the Red Lotus. Thank you, leader. Leader. While Karen was piloting the two styles of the Red Lotus to compete with the monster, she slightly opened her mouth and thanked him. Hey, you don't have to be polite. I'm just saving my comrade. Ray Minkai smiled softly, but then suddenly shouted, Karen, retreat. As soon as Ray Minkai's voice fell, the Lancelot he piloted suddenly exerted force to parry the two styles of the Red Lotus that had been competing with the two styles of the Red Lotus for a while. Several shadows rushed out of the sea of fire. With a little bit of sparks, with eyes that were numb but flashing with deep hatred, they were staring at the man standing in the distance, standing on a rooftop somewhere, observing the direction of the entire alliance, Gene. Therefore, these people who were born out of hatred and hatred would not have a channel for them to vent their anger. However, it was impossible today. No matter how bright the skateboards in their hands were, they were the craziest people in the dark tunnel. Beep, beep. As soon as the alarm sounded, Karen saw from the radar that they were quickly rushing out from the surrounding bunkers with panic, hatred, but more than that, they were rushing towards the two styles of the Red Lotus with longing faces. Don't come over. Although Karen was already an elite pilot who had risked her life many times on the battlefield, she had to take a few steps back because she could not target innocent people. She tried her best to distance herself from these people who were holding explosives and try to perish together with the two styles of the Red Lotus. Come on. Weren't you very powerful just now? Come on. Relying on the fact that there was someone behind them, and this mission was an unprecedented meeting with that person. Thinking of this, she did not want to deal with this lobster that came ashore. Wait for our results. Looking at his eager partner, Ray Minkai shook his head. It's not the time yet. Yes, it's not the time yet. I'm afraid the next stage of the mission will fall on Karen. By then, when everyone in the clan will be worried about the money for salt, rice, and wine, Karen will have completed the mission at hand. Roar! The murderer, who was disappointed by the appearance of Lancelot midway, finally could not hold back the rising fighting spirit and heart that was beating more and more vigorously. Nightmare Lancelot, I didn't expect to meet you on this occasion, but soon I'll be able to become a supreme person. Hearing the strange yet familiar voice coming from the communication channel, but without the slightest clue, the other party soon told Ray Minkai his identity straightforwardly. Two little people, take a look. This is the new power I've obtained. Amidst this increasingly arrogant shout, a giant hand waved upwards, and the clouds in the mountains, which used to be the shelter of the Kunming medicine, were blown away by the wind. At the same time, the body that had always been hidden in the flames and thick smoke also came to the human world amidst the rumbling sounds. This is silver white, twisted and strange body, and those that are obviously too small but are equipped with a variety of automatic weapons. That is the symbol of Langlon Shi. Karen did not look carefully, but because during this period of time, she had a certain understanding of the soldiers of Langlon Shi and their uniforms and medals. Langlon Shi, driving the Lancelot, he rushed to the strange airframe that looked similar to the airframe of the Lanlon West Kingdom. It was covered in silver and disgusting flesh and worms at lightning speed. Roar! In Lancelot's cockpit, White Cat State Zero's fluffy body stood up high, and the pair of murderous eyes stared unblinkingly at the strange body that walked out of the smoke. Are you sure? Although Ray Minkai said so, he already believed in the White Cat State Zero in his heart. Very sure. Kai, kill him. White Cat State Zero agreed without hesitation. Understood. Before Ray Minkai's answer fell, Lancelot jumped up and spread out the pair of light wings again, flying freely in the air, trying to attract the monster's attention. Obviously, the appearance of Lancelot midway not only ruined the enemy's plan to shoot down the Red Lotus second style, but also attracted the enemy's attention without any suspense. Lancelot, hee. Although I don't know who is piloting you. However, I smelled the same scent as before. Ah, it's you. You are that lion, right? In the strange body, a Sulei, who was injected with the number 4 agent brought by Phyllis, widened his eyes slightly, and his nose twitched as if he smelled something. Roar! A Sulei's emotions were burning with the fire of hatred at this moment, and at the same time, his silver-white vehicle was completely swallowed by the disgusting biological tissues in an instant. Roar! Another loud roar. It really is the Abyss transformation. Ray Minkai quickly took out his personal terminal and clicked on the Abyss detection alert. Level 2. The level shown on the small screen was far from the level where he needed to call for backup. Hey, are you scared? Kai. White Cat State 0 naturally saw Ray Minkai's action. No, I just feel that there are fewer people. Ray Minkai's gaze fell on the Red Lotus second style and also fell on the outskirts of the city. According to the time, they should have reached the outskirts of the city by now. If that was the case, then what Ray Minkai and the others had to do next was to do their best to kill this big guy. Karen, let's go together. Ray Minkai did not wait for Karen's response and immediately took advantage of Lancelot's flying advantage to launch a series of fierce attacks at the monster, trying to provide cover for the Red Lotus second style. Lancelot was attacking in the air, and the Red Lotus second style, standing on the ground, was the main attacker. Coming, Karen agreed. The Red Lotus second style turned into a storm and rushed out from the back of the broken building, taking advantage of the cover created by Lancelot. The Red Lotus second style was constantly moving at high speed in the wreckage of the building. Got you. As Ashuri's attention was completely attracted by Lancelot, the Red Lotus second style easily rushed to the back of the monster with the help of the wreckage of the building. Then, the Red Lotus second style's strongest and most fatal killer move was launched. General, monster. The Red Lotus second style's hidden right hand suddenly raised and tightly stuck to the back of the monster. Then, Karen pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang! A muffled explosion sounded. Then, there was a series of unpleasant and ear-piercing roars, and a burst of dazzling light waves that could almost distort light shot out from the palm of the Red Lotus second style's right hand. This was the killer move of the Red Lotus second style, Radiation Wave. Buzz, 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 buzz. The moment the buzzing reached its peak, an explosion occurred. The moment before the explosion, Karen decisively adopted a retreat strategy. Boom! Did it work? After pushing away for a distance, Karen looked at the monster that had become a big fireball. In the attack, just now, Karen felt that the radiation wave had indeed hit the monster. Moreover, she also saw the large and small pustules that appeared on the monster's surface. This was a phenomenon that would only occur after the radiation wave had completely hit the monster. In other words, the monster was really killed? The answer was no. Roar! Suddenly, amidst the rolling flames, a miserable roar rang out. It's that monster. It wasn't killed by the radiation wave. Karen was taken aback. Then, she gritted her teeth and wanted to rush up to finish the job. However, she was stopped by Ray Minkai. Wait, Karen, there's a situation. In front of Ray Minkai was a screen projected by the personal terminal. On it was a level table that detected the changes in the surrounding Abyss Index. At this moment, the Abyss Index, which was still at level 2 just now, had begun to move. 2, 12, 22, 32, 42, 72, 82, 9, it stopped. The Abyss Index level actually stopped to the number 2. 9. In other words, the Abyss activity on the opposite side stopped? No, it's not like that. Lancelot raised a rifle in his hand and shot at the burning fireball. Dang! The moment Lancelot's bullet was about to hit the fireball, an invisible force field suddenly blocked Lancelot's bullet, preventing it from hurting the fireball. You've evolved? Lei Minkai thought of this word. No, it's not evolved. It's mutated. White Cat State 0 refuted Ray Minkai's words. Roar. There was another roar. In the next second, the fireball suddenly exploded. A ferocious figure also appeared in front of Ray Minkai and Karen. A sharp head, a slender body covered with scales, a long tail, and a pair of cold vertical pupils that stared at Lancelot. Roar. I recognize you. You are that lion. Give me your life. Chapter 219. Sharp horns, a long neck, sharp and short front claws, thick and ferocious retreating back, and scales with cold light constantly flowing through them. It looked like the reincarnation of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. It stepped out of the thick smoke and flames and stared at Lancelot, who was flying in the air. That That's Tyrannosaurus Rex. On the other side of the street, Karen was surprised to see her enemy turn into this monster in the blink of an eye. No, it's not Tyrannosaurus Rex. Get out of the way, Karen. As soon as Ray Minkai shouted, the monster, which looked somewhat similar to Tyrannosaurus Rex, flicked its tail without warning, and a flash of light drew an arc in the void, striking towards the Red Lotus second style. Karen had no time to respond to Ray Minkai's reminder. She gritted her teeth and steered the Red Lotus second style to quickly avoid the attack route of the flash of light that broke through the air. Buzz! With this dodge, Karen saw that a large part of the wall and even the pillars of the building that was originally blocking the Red Lotus second style were cut off as the flash swept past. These cut-off parts did not roll to the ground, nor did they collapse on the spot. Instead, they strangely disappeared before Karen's eyes. This is... The dodging movements of the second style of the Red Lotus were smooth and coherent. After discovering the strangeness of the flash, Karen did not dare to look away for even a moment. She stared at the movement trajectory of the flash all the time. It was not until it disappeared into the void that Karen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It's too strange. Whether it was the appearance of the Tyrannosaurus Rex monster or the flash of light, such a rapid change made Karen somewhat uncomfortable. But Ray Minkai, on the other hand, was not surprised by the appearance of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, because from the beginning, he had foreseen that there would be a situation similar to the changes that occurred in the previous Kyushu campaign. State Zero, is it them? The ones from the previous Kyushu campaign? Lancelot relied on his flying wing system to perform high-speed maneuvers back and forth in midair, circling around the monster and probing attacks while asking. That's right, but it was a little strange. This is an Asmodai. The white cat, Type 0, was squatting at the side of the cockpit, staring at the T-Rex on the screen. Well, it's not Asmodai. This doesn't feel right. Moreover, the abyssal level detected by the personal terminal is also strange. Ray Minkai quickly glanced at the numbers displayed on the personal terminal on the right side of the driver's seat and shook his head. This was the first time he had encountered such a strange thing. If Mimi and the other senior inspectors were here, they would have been able to discern the true meaning of the situation. However, the current Ray Minkai was just a rookie patrol officer. Maybe it's a new breed. White Cat, on the other hand, was rather optimistic. It chuckled and jumped to the front of the driver's seat. Then, it turned around and looked at Ray Minkai. Kai, do you still remember that night match? Night match. Ray Minkai was slightly taken aback, but it did not affect Lancelot's movements. While the white cat, Type 0, and Ray Minkai were talking, Lancelot swooped down from midair. In the meantime, it raised the Vari's rifle in its hand and fired continuously at the sharp and small head of the T-Rex. However, Lancelot's shots did not hit the small head of the T-Rex. Instead, it was nimbly dodged. It's actually so nimble. Ray Minkai was surprised. He immediately pulled Lancelot up and accelerated it to fly higher in the sky. Because what followed was the beam of light that burst out from the half-open mouth of the Tyrannosaurus. Buzz! In the blink of an eye, the entire romantic city was illuminated by the beam of light that burst out. Beam cannon? Hey, isn't this against the rules? How could such a thing appear in this world? Among Lancelot, who had already pulled away, Ray Minkai's eyelids twitched wildly as he looked at the T-Rex that slowly closed its huge mouth. At this moment, Ray Minkai also saw the silver color under the Tyrannosaurus' feet. It was very eye-catching outside the ferocious scales of the Tyrannosaurus, but it was soon devoured by the ferocious scales. That is, the body of Langlon West Country? Ray Minkai frowned and found that things seemed to be a little out of his expectations. Kai, concentrate. It's just a little bug. Just treat it as a new breed. White Cat, Type 0 growled and raised its paw to slap on the driver's seat, interrupting Ray Minkai's thoughts. Ray Minkai was stunned for a moment before he nodded. That's right. It's just a new breed. Karen, you attack the lower body of the T-Rex. I'll be responsible for the upper body. Together, we'll lure it out of the city. Understood. After receiving Ray Minkai's notification, Karen, who was quickly making a detour between the buildings with the second style of the Red Lotus, quickly gave a reply. At the same time, Karen also took advantage of the free time of the second style of Red Lotus to look in the direction where Sean and the others retreated. Fortunately, nothing worse than the situation in front of her had happened. Sure enough, there's only one monster. Karen's gaze changed, and she gritted her teeth and cursed. Roar. The appearance of the T-Rex not only made Ray Minkai and Karen feel a little troublesome, but it also stimulated the fragile nerves of the people who fled like a flock of frightened sheep because of the attack and rumors. A huge body, ferocious claws, and a huge mouth that spat out beams of light. These scenes that would only appear in nightmares appeared in front of everyone at this moment, and it wantonly trampled on this romantic city that all the people were proud of. Monster, run. Ah! The situation was already chaotic enough, but after the appearance of the T-Rex, it slipped into an abyss. No matter how many troops Zeon sent out to maintain stability, they were unable to make these panicking citizens regain even a shred of rationality. Monster! General Vaughn himself also stared blankly at the T-Rex, who was trying their best to lure it away from the city under the joint efforts of Lancelot and the second style of Red Lotus. Are you surprised, General Zeon? Zero, who was standing next to him, shook her head slightly. Speaking of which, the monster that appeared in Kyushu is many times bigger than this T-Rex. Kyushu. As soon as Zeon heard the term Kyushu, he immediately calmed down. Yes. According to the information he obtained and the information given by Zero, the monster that was wreaking havoc in the capital was indeed nothing compared to the one in Kyushu. So, General Zero, can we enter the next stage? Zero chuckled and looked at Zeon's face that had become calm again through the mask. Isn't this the moment General Zeon has been waiting for? What? At this time, do you still need us to remind you? No, there is no need. Leave the rest of the matter to me. General Zero. Jean took a deep look at Lancelot, who was fighting with the Tyrannosaurus, and then decisively turned around and left with his men. The sound of beans exploding continuously rang out in the sky. This was the weapon that Lancelot borrowed from a checkpoint set up on a street below when the Red Lotus second style attracted the attention of the Tyrannosaurus. Lancelot's Vari's rifle was indeed powerful, but it was not enough to attract aggro. After all, the more powerful a weapon was, the more limited its ammunition was. Therefore, Ray Minkai decided to use the Vari's rifle as little as possible before luring the T-Rex to the outskirts of the city. But then again, although the power of the machine gun in Lancelot's hands could not tear through the defense of the T-Rex, it could make the T-Rex constantly stare at Lancelot. Good. Come here. Lancelot hovered in the air while holding the machine gun in his hand and aimed at the T-Rex's eyes and mouth to shoot. Although these seemed to be the weaknesses of the Tyrannosaurus, they were actually easily blocked by the Tyrannosaurus. Roar! Don't think that these little tricks can hurt me. I am a jury. Obviously, Lancelot's attack had caused this Tyrannosaurus to fall into a frenzy. Even its identity had been exposed in this rage without reservation. A jury? Wasn't he flattened by the long fawn lion? Hearing this name, Ray Minkai immediately remembered that during the rescue of Cornelia, he seemed to have been flattened by the long fawn lion. Surprised? Yes, you must be very surprised, because I crawled out of hell. Roar! A jury's voice came from the T-Rex's body and converged into a sharp roar in the air. Taking advantage of the moment when Tyrannosaurus Rex, that is Azura, stood in place and roared, Karen once again rushed forward with the Red Lotus 2 and stuck her right claw on the left leg of Tyrannosaurus Rex. Whether you're a jury, or a monster, now die for me. Boom! With Karen's decisive button, radiation waves once again raged on the monster's body. Lumps of various sizes floated up, constantly twisting the T-Rex's body from bottom to top. It seemed that the T-Rex was about to be torn apart by the power of radiation waves. When Karen saw that it was almost time, she immediately retreated with the Red Lotus second style. At the same time, she did not forget to observe the T-Rex that was on the verge of collapse due to the radiation waves. Did it work? No. Karen, get out of there. The answer to Karen's question was not the fact in front of her, but Rei Mingkai's sharp reminder. As soon as Karen heard it, she subconsciously dodged according to Rei Mingkai's reminder. But the moment she dodged, a blazing ray suddenly erupted in front of her and swept straight across the place where the second style of the Red Lotus was originally located, leaving behind a deep pit and the melted buildings. Roar! Almost at the same time, the Tyrannosaurus that should have been destroyed by the radiation waves let out a pained roar. The lumps of various sizes that had occupied its entire body and almost twisted it into destruction suddenly calmed down after surging for a while and sank into the monster's body. This scene made Karen incredulous. An even more unbelievable scene followed in the next moment. The back of the Tyrannosaurus suddenly flipped, and lumps of various sizes appeared on the back of the Tyrannosaurus, one after another, as if they wanted to make some big news on the back of the Tyrannosaurus. They kept surging and rolling. No, Kai! The White Cat State Zero issued a warning. Lancelot immediately threw away the machine gun in his hand and replaced it with 2 radiation vibrosword. As he quickly rushed to the sky, he turned around and descended from the sky at a 90 degrees angle. The target. It was the pair of rolling lumps on the back of the T-Rex. Clang! It was slow to say, but fast to do. In just the blink of an eye, the radiation vibrosword in the hands of Lancelot, who descended from the sky, slashed on the pair of lumps on the back of the T-Rex. When the sound of metal colliding rang, the sword in Lancelot's hand also paused for a moment, but Rei Mingkai and Lancelot still swung their swords smoothly and cut off the lumps on the back of the T-Rex. Kai, run! However, the moment the lumps separated from the body of the T-Rex, the White Cat State Zero's warning sounded again. Rei Mingkai did not dare to neglect. The moment the White Cat State Zero's voice sounded, he once again pulled Lancelot's flying height and accelerated to escape from the space around the T-Rex. Boom! The moment Lancelot broke away, the huge lumps that had been cut off exploded with a loud bang. Is this the radiation wave of the Red Lotus second style? Looking at the familiar explosion, Rei Mingkai was half surprised and half puzzled. This monster can devour radiation waves. Kai, tell the little girl not to use that trick again. Otherwise, Lancelot can cut it once, but not a second time. The White Cat State Zero looked back and forth at the T-Rex, trying to get a trace of information from it. Devour? Evolve? If Lancelot hadn't chopped off those lumps in time, would this Tyrannosaurus have evolved into a pair of wings? Reality did not give Rei Mingkai too much time to guess. After discovering that Lancelot had once again ruined his good deed, Asherai no longer focused on Lancelot. Instead, he focused on the surrounding buildings and the people running around in the nearby streets. Not good. Karen, other than the radiation wave, you can use any other attack. As soon as he saw the T-Rex showing an indiscriminate attack, Rei Mingkai no longer cared about saving ammunition and went all out. The blade in Lancelot's right hand had been replaced by the Vari's rifle. Under the powerful bullets of the Vari's rifle, the T-Rex's indiscriminate attack was quickly suppressed. Roar! The T-Rex swung its tail left and right, and 3 flashes of light flashed out. The formation of 1 in front and 2 behind rushed toward Lancelot. Be careful, Lancelot! Don't take that attack head-on. As soon as Karen's reminder sounded, Lancelot, who had deployed the radiation shield, was already facing the 3 flashes of light. Beep, 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 beep. In just a blink of an eye, Lancelot's own energy had entered a state of alarm, and an incomparably dazzling bright red light filled the cockpit at this moment. What's going on? How can Lancelot's energy drop so fast? Dimensional attack. How is that possible? Rei Mingkai looked at the energy meter in front of him that was constantly alerting him in surprise. Could it be this monster is a dimensional beast? Chapter 220. The radiation shield on Lancelot's hands had become extremely dim, as if it would shatter in the next second. Moreover, after resisting the T-Rex's attack, Lancelot's energy had decreased, causing the light wings that he used to fly in the air to have an energy crisis. It could no longer provide Lancelot with the ability to fly freely in the sky. Lancelot, are you okay? Just like Lancelot, Karen also drove the Nightmare special machine gun that she had obtained from the nearby checkpoint. While attracting attacks from the T-Rex, she called out to Lancelot. Barely. Ray Minkai smiled bitterly and shook his head. Although Lancelot's radiation shield had blocked the strange flashing attack, it had exhausted Lancelot's energy. Now that he was able to land safely, it was already considered Dashin's misfortune. If you can still move, get out of here quickly. This big guy seems to have taken a liking to you. Under the continuous shooting of the Red Lotus, the T-Rex, whose body was covered in sparks, still took firm steps and rushed toward Lancelot's position. All the buildings in front of it were all knocked away and destroyed in an incomparably barbaric manner. This unreasonable manner made it difficult for the Red Lotus in front to block it. Ray Minkai did not dare to be negligent. He reacted quickly and let Lancelot burst out with the last trace of energy. The moment the T-Rex rushed in front of them, they narrowly avoided its collision path. But because of this, Lancelot's energy finally reached the bottom. Ka! Ray Minkai pulled the lever a few times and shook his head helplessly. State 0. Looks like I'll have to rely on you next. Who told you not to drive the pirate Gouda over? White Cat State 0 glanced at Ray Minkai in disdain, then jumped and disappeared into the screen in front of Ray Minkai that was already red. In the blink of an eye, the screen that was red due to the exhaustion of energy suddenly became bright. At the same time, the zero energy meter at the bottom of the screen seemed to have received a strong and powerful replenishment. It suddenly bounced from the bottom of the valley with a strong force and soared directly from 0 to 100%. In just a few seconds, there was even exceptional performance. This was an internal performance. On the outside, since the moment the White Cat State 0 integrated into Lancelot's system, the circuits that converged from Lancelot's body to his brain emitted a burst of dim light. Lancelot, bang bang. What? When the second style of the Red Lotus was disrupting the shooting, Karen's heart suddenly beat rapidly. An indescribable panic spread from the depths of Karen's heart to her limbs at this moment. She was caught off guard and was almost swept by the T-Rex's tail. Karen, leave this to me. Cover the shooting, please. Immediately afterward, before Karen could figure out the source of the panic, a stream of light suddenly rushed out from behind the second style of the Red Lotus, followed by Ray Minkai's voice. Lancelot, how can it be? Wasn't there no energy just now? Karen looked at the stream of light that rushed to the front of the T-Rex in surprise. Even if it's a last-minute battery change, it can't be done in such a short time, right? There will always be a way. Karen, we have to lead this big guy away. While Ray Minkai was explaining, Lancelot, who had completely abandoned the Vari's rifle, held two swords and rushed to the T-Rex's feet like a stream of light. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The radiation vibrating sword, which was used at full strength, constantly roared. Ray Minkai's eyes were also fixed on the pair of thick feet in front of him. Buzz! The unique red light of the radiation vibrating sword flashed, and the sharp blade had already cut the joint of the T-Rex's left foot. Clang! The moment a roar sounded, a huge rebound force violently attacked Lancelot along the blade. TSK. It's actually so hard. The quick-witted Ray Minkai did not hesitate. When he realized that his sword was unable to cut through the Tyrannosaurus' strange but sturdy scales, he immediately retreated. He turned into a stream of light and charged into the air from the ground, heading straight for the Tyrannosaurus' eyes. If the Tyrannosaurus' strange scales allowed it to ignore most weapons, including the radiant vibrating sword, then its eyes might be one of its few weaknesses. Roar! Just as Lancelot rushed into the air, and before he had the time to stab the T-Rex's eyes with his sword, the T-Rex roared and swung its tail. The flash of light that had caused Lancelot to run out of energy and almost die on the battlefield appeared again. Kai! Dodge! Even if Lancelot has me to support him, you can't just waste your energy like this. White Cat State Zero, who had merged with Lancelot and temporarily became Lancelot's energy core, could not help but remind him. It was afraid that Ray Minkai would once again recklessly take on the attack that was no different from a dimensional attack because of its existence. Understood. White Cat State Zero's worries were unnecessary. After witnessing the strangeness of this Tyrannosaurus flash attack, Lei Minkai no longer dared to be careless. Hence, the moment the T-Rex swung its tail and released several arc-shaped flashes, Lancelot's figure that was flying in the air also became illusory. Sometimes it was left, sometimes it was right, sometimes it was up, sometimes it was down, whether it was circling left and right, up and down, in the blink of an eye. In the eyes of the T-Rex, Lancelot seemed to have changed from one to several dozens and even hundreds of Lancelot. In an instant, Lancelot's silhouettes had turned into over 100 in front of the tyrannical dragon, causing the strange flashing attack to be completely useless as it shattered more than 10 of Lancelot's silhouettes before finally dissipating in midair. How could this be? My attack actually missed. Inside the Tyrannosaurus, Ashur, who could barely maintain his consciousness, looked at Lancelot in shock. Although more than 10 of his afterimages had been destroyed, Lancelot was still able to create enough afterimages to confuse him. In the next moment, a cold light flashed in front of ASU Lei's eyes. Being stimulated by this cold light, ASU Lei subconsciously closed his eyes. At the same time, the Tyrannosaurus that had almost merged with him also closed its eyes. Clang! A sound of gold and iron colliding exploded. Ashurii suddenly felt a burning pain between his eyelids. Outrageous! With the rise of a nameless fire, Ashurii's eyes were blood red, and a bright red burst out from his throat. At the same time, the T-Rex's huge mouth lit up with that fatal light again. Kai, get out of the way! White Cat State Zero's reminder sounded again. Ray Minkai pulled with his right hand, and Lancelot quickly descended from the sky, full of afterimages. In the blink of an eye, he turned from the front of the T-Rex to the back. Boom! At this moment, before Lancelot could come to a complete stop, a terrifying aura swept across the sky along with the light from the Tyrannosaurus mouth. The terrifying colonization beam shot out from the Tyrannosaurus mouth in an instant and swept across the sky, sweeping away all of Lancelot's afterimages in the air. Do you really think you're Godzilla? Once again witnessing the terrifying scene of the T-Rex's explosive light beam, Ray Minkai secretly scolded. Boom! Suddenly, a strong gust of wind came from Lancelot's front left without any warning. Alarmed, Lei Minkai subconsciously made Lancelot fly into the air once more, narrowly brushing past the sound of the wind that suddenly assaulted them. At this moment, under Lancelot's feet, the once beautiful buildings were swept away by the T-Rex's tail in the blink of an eye, and all of them turned into ruins. Ow! How dare you destroy our world? I'll never forgive you. In the billowing smoke, the figure of the Red Lotus 2 Styles suddenly broke through the smoke and dust and stuck the T-Rex's right foot with the T-Rex's hand that was mixed with an unknown amount of explosives. Beep beep. Charge. Release. Activation. 2 Styles of the Red Lotus. The instant he retreated, the cluster grenade, which was mixed with an unknown method, exploded violently, engulfing the T-Rex's right leg. Roar! In the explosion, the T-Rex that wreaked havoc in the city of romance let out a painful cry. Did it work? Lancelot, who was hovering in the air, constantly observed the T-Rex's movements with the electronic eye. No! No! Kai! Now! Compared to Lancelot's electronic eye, the White Cat State Zero trusted its intuition more. The moment it noticed the T-Rex's abnormality, it immediately issued a reminder. Ray Minkai's gaze changed, and Lancelot raised its sword again, turning into a stream of light. From top to bottom, it pierced the T-Rex's huge eyes. Whoosh! Cha! The buzzing sound of the blade breaking through the air was still vibrating, and the radiation-vibrating sword in Lancelot's hand pierced the T-Rex's left eye without any hindrance. Roar! It's so painful. The T-Rex and Azura let out a roar together. Lancelot's figure swayed, and in the blink of an eye, he turned around from the left side of the T-Rex's face to the right side. The remaining radiation-vibrating sword in his hand followed his predecessor's footsteps and fiercely pierced the T-Rex's remaining huge, intact eye. Both eyes were blinded. Darkness. Severe pain. At this moment, it became the T-Rex. It became the deepest pain of Azura. Roar. The painful roar tore through the sky. The two radiation-vibrating swords that were pierced through its eyes flowed like a fountain of blood, making the already ferocious monster even more terrifying. Buzz. The light lit up again. Ray Minkai frowned and immediately drove Lancelot away from the front of the monster that had gone berserk because of the pain. Boom. The instant Lancelot left, the Tyrannosaurus Rex's mouth once again erupted with that fatal beam of light, breaking through the void and sweeping straight towards the sky. Then it actually fell down, hitting the empty buildings in front of him without any difference. Gotcha! Boom! The air was trembling. The flames were roaring. The wind was roaring. In just a moment, the buildings and the surrounding buildings were all turned into nothingness under the havoc of the light beam. Roar! The Tyrannosaurus, who had lost both his eyes, seemed to have lost the ability to sense Lancelot and the Red Lotus. He could only rely on his aimless, destructive methods to constantly wreak havoc on the buildings and enemies that appeared around him. It seems that our battle has failed. Nearly half of the city has been destroyed. Standing on the top of a tall building not far away, Karen smiled bitterly. Although this is not what we want, we have tried our best. Ray Minkai shook his head, indicating that the situation was already relatively good. If they let the Tusk Lion Zero attack, I am afraid that starting from the city center to this area near the suburbs would be turned into ruins. Moreover, the monster was now a long distance away from the city center. Karen, this is the last attack. Let's go. Lancelot jumped and rushed into the sky again. Below him, the Red Lotus 2 styles followed. Ashur has failed. On the side of the city center, Exion stood on the top of a tall building, holding a telescope, looking at the monster that was getting farther and farther away, and sighed softly. Then, are we still going to support him according to the plan? Shang Law, who was observing in another direction, couldn't help but ask. No, we're going to save the Knight of the Round Table. Ashur will take care of himself. After Exion put down the telescope, he turned and jumped on the golden centaur Visingetorix that was parked not far behind him. Sean, let's go. Don't let our Knight of the Round Table wait too long. Yes, my lord. On the other side, Sean and the others, who had finally retreated from the city, couldn't help but look back at the huge, terrifying, and ferocious figure. Hey, Sean, let's just retreat like this. Is it really okay? Yuching Shinichiro looked at the ferocious and terrifying monster and couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Otherwise, now, our mission is to bring these 2 Knight of the Round Table to meet up with Akeem and the others. Sean clenched his trembling hands tightly. Not to mention Yuching Shinichiro. Even he couldn't help but tremble when he saw the ferocious monster. This had nothing to do with courage. This was from the heart. No, it was from the fear of the monster that was hidden deep in the genes. Sean didn't know how to deal with this fear, so he could only do the task in front of him well. Sean, Black Knight Regiment, listen up. From now on, you must return to the White Wolf Fort without looking back. Even if someone falls on the way, you're not allowed to look back. Do you understand? At this moment, Zero's communication device rang. Sean and the others were stunned for a moment, but they still responded decisively. Through the binoculars, he could see that after receiving his order, the Black Knight Regiment's movements quietly became faster. Zero couldn't help but nod his head. We can move on to the next step of the plan. In the empty room, Zero casually picked up the chess piece beside him and gestured on the chessboard. When that monster is wreaking havoc in the city, the 4 Knight regiments won't let go of this good opportunity. Therefore, I'm afraid Sean and the others will be attacked next. Zero chuckled and placed the chess piece that represented the Knight regiment on the chessboard. Leave this to Alexander and the others. Next, it was the most crucial part of this battle. Zero raised his head and looked at the monster that was being attacked by Lancelot in the second style of the Red Lotus. Now, the capital's defense circle is in chaos because of this monster's sudden attack. This is undoubtedly the best opportunity. If it's me, then, on the other side of the ocean, Imperial capital, Pandora. The young emperor sitting on the high throne slowly stood up, raised his hand, and swept it across his eyes. He loudly ordered, "Let's go. Attack." In the name of the 99th Emperor of the Britannia Empire, Lucio V. Britannia, the 4 knight regiments that protect Europe. Use your spears, swords, and a Nightmare Knight regiment that you are so proud of to destroy the enemy that has already fallen into chaos. Strike a fatal blow to their fragile heart. Yes, your majesty. All hail Britannia. All hail Lelouch. Under the emperor's command, the knight regiment that was entrenched in northern Europe, hanging high on the neck of Langlon West, poured out at this moment. Among them, the beautiful woman Phyllis was also among them. Behind her, there were 2 figures shrouded in huge cloaks. Chapter 221. White Wolf Fort. An oppressive low pressure hovered above the command hall, snatching away the atmosphere of the lively, beautiful girls from Class CIC. And the source of this low pressure was a combination that made everyone not dare to complain anymore. As the new commander of White Wolf Fort, Layla, and the 2 princesses of the Empire, Euphemia and Cornelia, the combination of the 3 of them was the culprit that caused the low pressure. However, even so, no one present dared to complain. They just silently did the work at hand. Commander, found a feedback signal. Anna, the only girl who could report the situation to Layla, opened her mouth at the moment when everyone was on the verge of exploding from the pressure. Quick, analyze it, and put the results on the main screen. Layla's eyes flashed as she gave the order decisively. The next moment, the beautiful girl's assistants, who had already understood, put the results of the analysis on the main screen. As expected, they're here. As soon as Layla saw the feedback signal after the analysis, an expression of as expected appeared on her young face. That's for sure. Now, the defense network of the capital region has fallen into chaos. No matter what kind of trap is behind this temptation is enough to make any rational commander unable to resist giving it a try. As the famous Valkyrie of the Britannia Empire, Cornelia smiled as she looked at the results presented on the main screen. It's just that I didn't expect him, the Emperor, to have a time when he couldn't resist. From our experience with him, he doesn't seem to be the kind of person who is in a hurry for success. Euphemia also expressed her opinion. Not in a hurry for success. Cornelia raised her eyebrows slightly and chuckled a few times. Maybe, but now, this battle is no longer just about the monsters ravaging the capital. It's a battle to destroy the country. Commander Layla, have you thought it through? After Cornelia mercilessly pointed out the predicament that Langlon West was facing, Layla fell into deep thought, while the others showed various expressions. But, judging from the results, most of the beautiful girls sitting in the command center suppressed the fear in their hearts, forced themselves to sit down, and continued to work. Of course, Cornelia was surprised to see the mountain of flesh among these beauties, and had a whole new level of respect for it. Unexpectedly, the calmest person was this big fatty. Your Highness, how confident are His Excellency Ray Minkai and Her Excellency Zero's plan? Layla looked up and asked Cornelia. Cornelia smiled mysteriously. Instead of asking me, why don't you ask your own heart? Commander Layla, when it comes to strategy, you're not inferior to any of us. What you lack is the decisiveness and courage to be a qualified general. At this moment, the automatic door of the command center was opened. Walking in from the door was Veretta, who had changed into a fitted driving suit. The brown pearl woman, who had recovered from her injuries and regained her former valiant appearance, straightened her back and saluted Cornelia and Euphemia. Veretta knew of Department Q, reporting under orders. Your Highnesses, please instruct me. Since Ray Minkai's return, everyone in Department Q, including Veretta, strongly requested that the position of Department Q's commander be returned to Ray Minkai. Therefore, Veretta's status had been demoted, and she was once again returned to the ranks of the frontline combatants. Veretta, the next battle is up to you. Euphemia and Cornelia exchanged glances, then stepped lightly in front of Veretta and said softly, "Yes, it's my honor." According to the plan, everyone in Department Q would stay in White Wolf Fort as a reserve force until the Emperor on the other side of the ocean made his next move. Then, Department Q would follow Pirate Gauda's action and launch a battle to announce the official return of Department Q. Veretta knew. Be alert. Not only Her Highness Euphemia, but I'll also go with you. Cornelia instructed in a deep voice and turned to look at Layla. Commander Layla, I'll leave this to you. Next, we'll head to the border with Department Q in the shortest time possible and delay the enemy's attack as much as possible. I understand. I'll get Alexander and the Black Knight squad to return as soon as possible and extend a helping hand to you as soon as possible. Layla nodded. Everything was understood without words. Under Veretta's lead, Cornelia and Euphemia quickly arrived at the underground Naku of White Wolf Fort. Royd and his assistant Cecil had been waiting here for a long time. Welcome, Your Highnesses. I've finally waited for you to come. As soon as they met, Royd showed an unusual enthusiasm to Euphemia. Without looking, Euphemia and Cornelia knew that the reason why Royd became so enthusiastic was because of Pirate Gauda, who was emitting a mysterious aura that Royd couldn't refuse. If it wasn't for the impending battle, Royd would probably have already launched an annoying attack on Euphemia and even Ray Minkai, trying to make them nod so that Royd could see with his own eyes, touch with his own hands, and even climb into Pirate Gauda's cockpit. Royd, Guy said that after this battle ends, Pirate Gauda can naturally be studied by you. However, are you really prepared to receive all the information related to Pirate Gauda? This might even topple your outlook on life. Euphemia, who had an amiable smile on her face, inadvertently said something that made Cecil tremble with fear. In Cecil's opinion, Pirate Gauda, who was emitting a mysterious aura, was an existence that Royd and the others could come into contact with in a short period of time. However, Royd had already become extremely excited after receiving Ray Minkai's promise. Cecil knew that his worries were useless. Really, Royd was afraid that the promise he heard was false, so he hurriedly asked, "It's true. This is not only Guy's promise, but also my, Euphemia Libertania's, promise. In addition, I sincerely request you, Royd Asprind, in my own name. I hope that you could do everything you can to thoroughly study Pirate Gauda's techniques and use them to benefit the world." Euphemia slowly changed her tone and solemnly looked at Royd. "Can I? Royd Asprind." Facing Her Highness the Empress, who suddenly showed a solemn expression, Royd, who was usually frivolous, couldn't help but put away his frivolous smile and nodded calmly. "If this is Your Highness' intention, then Royd Asprind will follow Your Highness' guidance and continue forward." Finished speaking, Royd led Cecil, who had been caught off guard by the sudden attack, to give a deep bow to Euphemia. "I'm counting on you, Royd. We'll talk about the details when we return." Euphemia's departure brought a light breeze, and also brought Euphemia's promise to Cecil's ears. Only when Pirate Gauda's thrusters roared into the sky did Cecil slowly come back to his senses. "Royd, are you serious?" "Serious? What's serious? When have I not been serious?" In the blink of an eye, Royd withdrew his calm expression, and while laughing, he once again changed into the extremely familiar sloppy face of Cecil. This made Cecil feel helpless, but at the same time, it also made her feel a trace of relief. "Royd, does Her Highness Cornelia's phone really not need to be tested?" Cecil's thoughts changed, and he placed his thoughts on Cornelia's newly released body. Although using the convenience brought by the drone production line in White Wolf Fort, Royd and Cecil had already roughly produced all the bodies used by Department Q and the others in a short span of a few days. But Cornelia's new phone was a completely new body that was practically based on Lancelot's data. Under the situation where it hadn't undergone any testing, if it was directly given to Cornelia to use, it would probably cause a huge mess. No, there's no need to worry about this problem. Her Highness, who looks like a vase, but is actually smarter than anyone else, has already given a perfect plan. Looking at the sand and dust in the distance, Roy gently pushed up his glasses and revealed a mysterious smile. North of White Wolf Fort, under the leadership of the pirate Gauda, the newly released Nightmare of Department Q was rapidly advancing toward the country's border. Everyone, including Cornelia and Veretta, was using this opportunity to practice and familiarize themselves with the new body they controlled in the shortest amount of time. The new body used by Veretta and the other Department Q pilots didn't deviate too much from the old body they were familiar with, so they were able to grasp it much faster. However, Cornelia encountered a problem that wasn't a problem. Harrow, Cornelia, Harrow, Cornelia. The Valkyrie, who was galloping on the battlefield, stared blankly at the ball that was rotating back and forth on the control panel on her right hand. This was the purple Harrow that Euphemia temporarily lent to her before she boarded the new body named Messiah. Cornelia helplessly shook her head as she observed Harrow's seemingly stupid yet nimble movements. It was as though it possessed an entire universe within it. How strange. When did UFFI find such a strange but fun thing? Cornelia thought she already had some understanding of Euphemia's experience after she left this world. But in the end, Cornelia still found that Euphemia brought her far more surprises. Harrow, Cornelia, mistake. Right turn correct. All of a sudden, Purple Harrow turned to Cornelia and bluntly corrected the low-level mistake Cornelia had made in a moment of carelessness. Oh. Cornelia, who was stunned by the Purple Harrow, subconsciously followed the Purple Harrow's instructions and took advantage of this time to master the performance of Messiah as soon as possible. In the sky, the pirate Gauda, who took the lead, slowly landed on a mountaintop that was only a few hundred meters high. He looked at the vast plain that had already appeared in front of him. The target coordinates have been reached, but there is no trace of the enemy. Harrow, turn the optical radar output frequency to the maximum. Don't miss any place. Sitting in the driver's seat, Euphemia looked around and issued an order to Harrow. Because he temporarily lent the Purple Harrow to Cornelia before departure, part of the pirate Gauda's performance was under his personal control. Therefore, the pressure Euphemia had to face was not so easy. It was strange. From the information obtained by the unmanned space carriers at the front line, the 4 major corps that had already begun to move should have already touched the border. Why was it that after the pirate Gauda arrived here, he was surprised to find that there was no trace of the enemy at the border? White Wolf Fort, this is pirate number 1. We have reached the target coordinates, and there is no trace of the enemy. Please confirm. After the pirate Gauda's various radars scanned back and forth a few times, Euphemia sent a message back to the White Wolf Fort behind, trying to let the White Wolf Fort use the unmanned space carriers to carry out aerial reconnaissance again. Layla's action was swift. After receiving the feedback from Euphemia, the unmanned space carriers hovering at an altitude of 10,000 meters had already begun to move. But the result of their reconnaissance was exactly the same as the pirate Gauda's. On this border, there was no trace of the enemy at all. How can it be? Anna, expand the search area. I don't believe that such a large-scale army would disappear for no reason. Layla could not believe that the result of the unmanned space carrier's reconnaissance was that there was no one at all. Therefore, she once again issued the order to expand the investigation area. While the unmanned space carriers were expanding the search area, the pirate Gauda standing on the mountaintop was not idle either. Compared to Layla, Euphemia had seen all kinds of incredible technology that had appeared in the Gauda world. Especially during the Steel Pulla battle, the fantastic ideas that Euphemia had seen had already proved the possibility of the Gauda world. Harrow, turn on the anti-optical radar and operate it at maximum power. While Euphemia issued the new order, she also let the pirate Gauda quietly change into the rarely used beam rifle. Harrow, understood. Harrow, understood. with the joint operation of Harrow and the others. The silver-gray cloak covering the pirate Gao Da's left shoulder suddenly fluttered. Amidst the tumbling of the silver-gray liquid, a small and exquisite radar emerged from the cloak. The instant it fully emerged in this world, an invisible and untouchable wave silently spread out in all directions with the pirate Gundam as its center. Suddenly, the pirate Gao Da's eyes suddenly lit up. Then, the muzzle of the beam rifle in his hand was suddenly raised high, and a beam attack was fired at the empty wasteland in the distance. Buzz! Whoosh! The particles rumbled. The particle beam that was supposed to move forward in a straight line was distorted as if it had collided with something indescribable, changing its flight path and flying to the other side. Seeing this, Euphemia was not surprised. Instead, her eyes flashed with a bright light. Found you. Chapter 222. Kai, Your Royal Highness has reached the border. When Lancelot and the second style of the Red Lotus teamed up to lure the blind Tyrannosaurus to the edge of the capital, State Zero's voice sounded. UFFI? Is that so? It seems that our Emperor is unwilling to be left out and is about to make a move. Ray Minkai was not surprised by Euphemia's actions. Instead, he asked State Zero to help him contact Zero, who was hiding somewhere in the capital. Kai, why do you have time to contact me? Don't you care about your new friend? Zero's voice did not sound like she was affected by the battle, and she even had time to make a joke. Hee, I'm just taking a break from work. Zero, your one has started to move. I can't free myself. You should know what to do next. Ray Minkai smiled gently and told Zero the news that State Zero received. Zero, who was hiding somewhere in the capital, looked up at the burning city and the sky that was burning red. Is that so? If he has started to move, then it's our turn next. Kai, get rid of your pet as soon as possible. After Zero sent a response to Ray Minkai, she opened the communication link with Karen. Karen, cooperate with Lancelot and get rid of that pet as soon as possible. Zero. Radiation wave of the second style of the Red Lotus can be said to be useless now. If the second style of the Red Lotus is still here, I'm afraid it can only be used as a distraction. Karen clenched her teeth tightly and explained the current situation she had encountered. Ever since the attack of the radiation wave just now caused the enemy to suddenly turn into this huge and ferocious venerable, Karen had been wary of the radiation wave, the biggest killing move of the two styles of the Red Lotus. No, it's fine. Karen, your job is to assist Lancelot. Leave the rest to Lancelot. After that, Zero closed the communication without any explanation. Emperor Lucio, you finally made a move. Zero took a deep look at the other side of the ocean before turning around and disappearing into the darkness. Karen felt helpless. After the radiation wave had lost its effectiveness and became a mutation that would cause the enemy to mutate, she and the second style of the Red Lotus had launched an effective bomb attack against the Tyrannosaurus. But that time, they had already used up all the bombs in the checkpoint nearby. How troublesome. Amidst Karen's complaints, Style Fiery Lotus 2 still picked up the machine gun in his hand and kept shooting at the Tyrannosaurus' feet and abdomen. The sky was Lancelot's home ground. Compared to the second form of Red Lotus, which had its ultimate move sealed, Lancelot, who was wielding the radiant vibrating sword, was in a better situation. Especially with the assistance of the radiating light wings, Lancelot's maneuverability was raised to a whole new level. He nimbly circled around the Tyrannosaurus' huge head, trying to find an opportunity to directly attack the inside of its mouth. However, now that both of its eyes were blinded by Lancelot, this Tyrannosaurus still maintained a certain degree of sensitivity to the outside world. As long as Lancelot's distance was too close, this Tyrannosaurus would immediately take corresponding measures to force Lancelot away from it. And the flash attack that burst out from the tail was one of them. After seeing the flash attack that caused the energy consumption of the radiant shield to sharply increase by several levels, Ray Minkai no longer dared to be too careless. Once again, he directly used the radiant shield to fight head-on. But even so, the Tyrannosaurus that was entrenched in defense, that is, the person hidden deep inside it, Ashura was not a man who was almost entrenched in defense and waiting for rescue. In his opinion, he had now obtained great power. The enemy's capital was also trembling under his feet. How could such a powerful existence be trapped by the obstruction of two small airframes? And even his boss, Shinhyuga Natsum, had to come to the rescue. The more he thought about it, the more Ashura could not forgive himself. He could not forgive this incompetent person who still needed his boss to lend a helping hand, even if he had obtained great power. No, how can it be? How can I let Natsum save me? Never. Driven by this willpower, the Tyrannosaurus suddenly let out a roar that resounded through the world. When this roar scattered the surrounding clouds, it also made the hearts of all the humans who heard this roar sink, as if they had encountered something terrible. Their limbs couldn't help but tremble, unable to move freely. It's time to go all out. As one of the opponents of the Tyrannosaurus, Karen's eyes flashed with a hint of graveness. And, coincidentally, the machine gun in the Red Lotus II's hand also happened to run out of bullets at this moment. TSK, out of ammunition? It seems that the next battle will be a hand-to-hand battle. Karen, listen to my orders. I need the Red Lotus II to open a passage in this position. As Rei Minkai's voice sounded, a moving diagram lit up in the cockpit of the Red Lotus II. This is? Are you sure? With a glance, Karen discovered that this seemingly simple diagram was actually very difficult to understand. Yes, as long as you can complete my request within the specified time. Rei Minkai's answer was clear and affirmative. Good. Give the instructions when you're ready. Karen nodded straightforwardly. Rei Minkai responded, and Lancelot once again raised both swords, rushed straight into the sky, and then rushed down at a nearly 90 degrees angle. In an instant, the whole world resounded with the whistling sound of Lancelot's rapid fall. Close, close, close. Even without Lancelot's electronic eyes, Rei Minkai could clearly see the sharp horn on the Tyrannosaurus' head. Clang! The sword chimes sounded, and the two swords in Lancelot's hands changed direction and went straight for the head of the Tyrannosaurus monster in a crisscross manner. However, the moment before Lancelot was about to fall on the head of the Tyrannosaurus monster, the Tyrannosaurus suddenly raised its head. A bright light shot out from its mouth. The beam attack from before appeared again at this critical moment. At this moment, Lancelot, who was its target, was already within reach, and there was almost no way to avoid it. Boom, rumble. An earth-shattering explosion rang out, a dazzling light that took away the day. There was also a huge beam of light that passed through the outskirts of the capital and rushed straight into the distance. This was what all the humans in the capital circle were witnessing with their own eyes. Karen was stunned, but the next moment, she was awakened by Rei Minkai's voice. Karen, what are you still standing there for? Hurry, now is the chance. Rei Minkai's voice came from the light, and Karen did not even see where he was. She subconsciously moved toward the next location according to the route that Rei Minkai had given her. The light gradually faded, and the sky returned to its previous appearance. The only difference was the building that was once intact but was completely destroyed because it was on the axis of the beam of light. Swoosh! Two flashes of light flashed in midair. Rei Minkai focused his gaze, and Lancelot easily dodged it, allowing it to disappear in midair. Roar! The Tyrannosaurus monster's blind eyes suddenly surged. After a while, the pair of blind eyes slowly opened again, revealing a pair of perfectly intact eyeballs, as if the scene of Lancelot stabbing the sword in his hand into the eyeballs did not exist. High-speed regeneration? This is troublesome. Rei Minkai's expression turned solemn. After the enemy revealed its trump card, high-speed regeneration, Rei Minkai knew that the longer it dragged on, the more advantageous the situation would be for the enemy. State 0. Have you found its weakness? Lancelot's body swayed, and he once again raised his sword to attack the Tyrannosaurus. As the sword flashed, Rei Minkai's questioning voice sounded continuously. Don't rush me. I'm looking. This is a new monster. In my memory, I've never seen such an existence. After the white cat state 0 responded with a few words, it immediately displayed the results of its calculations based on the data on the scene on the screen. Kai, attack here. This may be the monster's center. Isn't this Karen's next target? Just nice. Ray Minkai glanced at it, then ignored it, and focused on using all his skills to attract the attention of the Tyrannosaurus and Asherai. This would allow Karen's next move to be smoother. Don't run. I saw you. Lion. After Asherai saw Lancelot showing a look of wanting to retreat, it impatiently chased after him. Unexpectedly, it fell into Ray Minkai's trap. Roar! Lancelot flew at high speed in front, and the Tyrannosaurus monster behind him took heavy steps and chased closely behind. At the same time, as the monster moved, small light beams and missiles rose from the fingers and back of the Tyrannosaurus monster, giving Lancelot a vivid lesson on how a rainstorm was formed. Boom! 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 Buzz! 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 The light beams were like rain, and the missiles were like a forest. As Lancelot moved rapidly, no matter where it went, the light beams and missiles would always be able to catch up with it in the first moment and sprinkle a rain of bullets on its head. The radiance of the radiation shield was still gorgeous, but this was not the way. Even if Lancelot's radiation shield could protect Lancelot from the aftermath of the explosion caused by the rain of bullets, it would not be able to take any damage. However, this 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 1,000 hit rate made Ray Minkai unable to relax. Whoosh! Lancelot suddenly made a sharp turn in midair, and at the moment when the Tyrannosaurus monster turned to the right, Lancelot actually stopped abruptly and turned to the opposite direction in a flash. Taking advantage of the time when the Tyrannosaurus monster, which was Asherai, had yet to react, he completely escaped from the rain of bullets. Now, Karen. At the moment when Lancelot escaped from the rain of bullets, he suddenly shouted. A huge explosion also sounded at the moment when Ray Minkai's voice fell. With the speed of lightning, it sounded from under the Tyrannosaurus monster's feet. An incomparably powerful energy that was enough to completely engulf the surrounding buildings became the main character at this moment. And with the Tyrannosaurus monster as the center, it completely engulfed the land that radiated out for 500 meters. In the blink of an eye, the Tyrannosaurus monster was trapped in this rapidly collapsing area. Humph! This is just a small trick. How can it be possible to trap me here? Inside the Tyrannosaurus monster, Asherai sneered coldly. Just when he was about to take action to express his disdain for this small trick, a chill suddenly appeared from his waist without any reason and quickly rushed to his brain, causing him to subconsciously shiver a few times. Zila, a sound similar to the sound of cloth being torn apart was heard. Asherai was startled, and a powerful force suddenly erupted from his body, causing the Tyrannosaurus monster that was trapped in this huge, deep pit created by the second style of Red Lotus to struggle frantically. Who? The big tail with sharp barbs kept sweeping back and forth behind the Tyrannosaurus monster. This was the direction where the chill that Asherai felt came from. However, he could only take care of this place, but he couldn't take care of other places. As soon as the chill from his back disappeared, the chill appeared on the top of his head, causing Asherai to feel extremely annoyed. Especially at this moment, half of the Tyrannosaurus monster's body was buried in the deep pit created by the second style of Red Lotus, so the range that it could move around was not very large. Clang! Sparks flew everywhere. The two swords in Lancelot's hands fiercely cut a cross-shaped wound on the Tyrannosaurus monster's head. Although this was the body of the Tyrannosaurus monster, it made Asherai feel the pain and humiliation as if it was his own body. Roar! Preposterous! The Tyrannosaurus monster let out a roar, and Asherai's angry curses were mixed in with this roar. Boom! Suddenly, a powerful force burst out from the Tyrannosaurus monster's body, blowing everything around it up like a storm. Lancelot, who was caught off guard, almost couldn't stabilize his body in time and fell powerlessly in the sudden force that appeared. Ka! A series of crisp sounds exploded, and this was the shocking scene that happened in front of Kai's eyes. Changed shape. This huge monster was actually able to transform after half of its body was sunk deep into the ground. Such a change was unexpected by Kai. However, Kai and State Zero reacted quickly. Since the enemy had changed shape, then they should do it too. Roar! A lion's roar sounded, and Lancelot, who was soaring in the sky, was also wrapped in a white light. The white light flashed. A figure that was bigger than Lancelot and exuded a pure white aura descended from the sky, waving a pair of steel claws that were shining with a deadly light. A golden light flashed, and the white figure landed. Along with the white figure, the Tyrannosaurus monster's left hand also landed. Chapter 223. When the Red Lotus Second Style completed the mission given to it by Kai, it emerged from the underground tunnel that had been prepared in advance. When it returned to the surface, there were already two figures that were larger than the Red Lotus Second Style standing on the collapsed battlefield. Lion, where's Lancelot? When Karen saw the white beast confronting the red giant, she subconsciously exclaimed, because she recognized the identity of the tusked lion at first glance, and the red giant that was confronting the tusked lion could be seen from the scales on his body and some strange characteristics. This red giant should have some kind of connection with the Tyrannosaurus monster from before. Karen, you did well. Now, you can go and join Sean and the others. Kai's voice sounded, but Karen did not immediately agree. But this giant is transformed from the T-Rex monster, right? Can you deal with it alone? Go. Leave it to me and the long-fanged lion here. Zero agrees as well. In order to let Karen leave the battle area as soon as possible, Kai even brought out Zero's name. Helplessly, Karen finally drove the second form of Red Lotus away from the dilapidated battlefield. Hey, this little girl is very concerned about the masked kid. Kai, let's not talk too much. Go all out. After a smile, State Zero suddenly said in a serious tone. No matter how State Zero searched his memories, there was no relevant information about the enemy in front of him. Therefore, the enemy with the ability to transform in front of him was probably a troublesome existence. Okay. Kai gently pushed with his right hand, and the long-fanged lion's four limbs stomped on the ground and disappeared. The wind whistled. A golden light flashed in midair. Boom! When the red giant raised its arm to block, it blocked the golden light. As a result, the momentum of the long-fanged lion's Zero style that leaped into the air and slapped out with its claws was exhausted. Hey, you finally came out. Lion. Amidst the wrestling between the giant and the lion, a Shuriai's arrogant voice sounded. After re-witnessing the appearance of the long-fanged lion's claw, a Shuriai's memory of being almost killed by the long-fanged lion's claw emerged from the depths of his memory. It's painful. Lion, the pain I brought to you last time was really painful. With a Shuriai's roar, the red giant swung his arm and threw the long-fanged lion away. However, the long-fanged lion did not fall into a state of powerlessness after being swung by the red giant's arm. Instead, after a few rounds of somersaults in the air, it landed steadily on the ground without any injuries. Very strong. Very strong. Lion. The red giant abruptly lifted its foot, and a cloud of dust rose into the air. It was actually able to easily pull itself out of the pit that was already half buried in the ground. As the long-fanged lion's claw, the long-fanged lion's claw, the long-fanged lion. The long-fanged lion's claw, the long-fanged lion's the claw giant. In terms of body size, of 30 meters. Even though Kai hadn't carefully observed the Tyrannosaurus monster's height before, this red giant that was transformed from the Tyrannosaurus monster was actually 30 meters tall. Not to mention the long-fanged lion. Even the pirate Gouda did not have such a height. Power. This is my power. In order to take revenge on you, Lion, I got this power. And it is called luck. The moment the red giant stood up, ASU, Lay recited the name of the red giant in a poetic tone. Luck. State Zero, have you heard of it? Ray Minkai was unfamiliar with this name. Whether it was the Gauda series, other mech series, or even the Supreme Robot series, there had never been such a name. No, I don't remember seeing this red giant or hearing this name. I'm afraid that the power of this red giant is not weaker than Asmodai. I feel the same. Ray Minkai deeply agreed with State Zero's words. But reality did not let them sit down to discuss the reason for the red giant's appearance. Buzz. Dong. Dong. Suddenly, a beam of light burst out from the red giant's chest, densely covering the long-fanged lion's face. At the same time, missiles with a diameter of 300 centimeters were launched from the launch hatches on the back of the red giant. While drawing a white trajectory in the air, the missiles roared and sealed off the front, back, left, and right of the tusked Lion Zero. State Zero. Without looking back, just by listening to the deafening roar, Ray Minkai already knew that this wave of attack was coming fiercely. If he did not show his true ability, the long-fanged lion would not be able to protect himself under such an attack. Roar. The long-fanged lion roared, and a light started from the head of the long-fanged lion. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped the long-fanged lion. Run, long-fanged lion. Ray Minkai pushed with both hands, and the movement of the long-fanged lion suddenly stagnated. At this moment, the chaotic and dense beams of light had sealed the long-fanged lion's front, back, left, and right. The sky above the long-fanged lion's head was also occupied by the missiles. As long as the clock hand moved forward 1 or 2 times, the overwhelming number of missiles would inevitably drown the long-fanged lion. However, at this moment, the stagnant long-fanged lion seemed to have learned how to teleport, and suddenly disappeared from spot. When it reappeared, it had already rushed out of the area sealed by the beams of light and missiles. Boom, boom, boom. It was slow to say, but it was fast to do. The long-fanged lion, who was bound to be seriously injured, teleported to another place in an incredible way, thus avoiding this wave of fierce attacks. Good, good, very good. The real lion has appeared. It's really you. His offensive was thwarted, but Ashuriai did not feel discouraged. Instead, his fighting spirit and madness became more and more intense, and he became more and more immersed in it. That's it, lion. The red giant, which was the huge human figure called Rochester by Ashuriai, raised his hands, and a beam of light burst out from his fingers, outlining a huge net in midair and covered the long-fanged lion. However, the long-fanged lion, whose whole body was still shrouded in the white light, easily jumped out from under the huge net. In the next moment, the twin-fang Lion Zero landed on top of the collapsed building. As the white light faded, it had already changed into a set of blue equipment, carrying a pair of plasma engines that could give the twin-fang Lion Zero surging power. A blue lion. Ashuriai's exclamation sounded. The red giant Rochester's face squirmed, and revealed a beam cannon hidden deep in his mouth. Suddenly, a huge beam of light suddenly burst out and shot straight at the long-fanged lion. However, this amazing and powerful beam cannon did not catch up with the long-fanged lion. No, it should be said that it could not catch up with the long-fanged lion's footsteps. The long-fanged lion, who had already changed into a high-speed armor, was not an existence that a slow body could compare to. Although the long-fanged lion, who burst out with its excellent maneuverability, could not be said to be the most outstanding existence, it was still one of the fastest bodies. Therefore, this extremely powerful mouth cannon could not hit the long-fanged lion in the end, and it disappeared in mid-air in vain. Bang! A loud and clear sound of metal clashing rang out. The red giant Rochester staggered a few steps forward. Ashuriai looked back, but could only see the afterimage left by the long-fanged lion. It turned out that the red giant staggered a few steps just now was caused by the long-fanged lion's high-speed collision. It's just a collision, and it has such power? Ashuriai, who had merged with the red giant Rochester, was surprised to see several cracks on his shoulder. It was just a simple collision, but it had already broken the red giant Rochester's tough scales. If it had directly used its sharp claws, wouldn't it have been able to smash Rochester's scales? Is it the ability of the new armor? Although ASU Lei hated the existence of a long-tooth lion style Zero, this was also the first time that ASU Lei stood firmly on the battlefield and came into contact with the power of the long-tooth lion style Zero at a close distance. Roar! With a roar, the wind howled. Azura was shocked and subconsciously controlled Lorcester to bend over. However, Azura had forgotten that Locke was now 30 meters tall. In his subconscious mind, he was still controlling the familiar nightmare from his memory. As a result, Ashur was able to protect Locke's head and other vital parts from the lion's laser claws, but he wasn't able to protect Locke's waist from the lion's laser claws. Rip! When an ear-piercing and unpleasant sound of metal breaking was heard, ASU Lei was also eroded by a heart-wrenching pain. Ah! A miserable howl that came from the bottom of his heart was constantly tormenting ASU Lei's nerves. But ASU Lei's spirit was sinking into the abyss of madness because of this intense pain. So painful. Lion. Amidst the pain, ASU Lei raised his arm, causing Locke to raise his left arm and swing it back, try to slap the long-toothed lion away. In the end, it was still futile. The long-toothed lion, which had excellent high-speed performance, didn't continue fighting after the first attack. Instead, it decisively adopted the strategy of moving away from the red giant Locke's side. TSK. It doesn't look very strong. Compared to Asmodai, it's much weaker. As the carnivore lion moved quickly, State Zero's contempt was revealed in his words. Don't be careless. Although it's far from reaching level 3, I feel that this red giant's strength is far more than that. Ray Minkai interrupted State Zero's chuckle and said what he felt. Level 3? Is this the result of the authorities' detector? I remember that at level 3, it seems that you can call for backup. State Zero suddenly remembered that when he returned to this world, the relevant staff had given a similar hint. Yes, but this red giant in front of us hasn't reached the authorities' Abyss Level 3 standard. So, we can only deal with it. Ray Minkai nodded, his gaze never leaving Locke. Hey, since it hasn't reached Asmodai's level, then we don't have to be so cautious. With a flash, the predator lion disappeared into the shadow of a building complex that was mostly collapsed, but it coincidentally formed a support for each other and did not completely collapse. Don't think of escaping. The red giant Locke's 10 fingers spread apart, and beams of light shot out from the front of his fingers. With a dense and dazzling frequency, it went straight to the wreckage. It forcefully cut the wreckage with its powerful attack power, trying to force out the long-toothed lion hiding in the wreckage. In the end, ASU Lei and Locke did the right thing. The long-toothed lion hiding in the shadows was indeed forced out. But what appeared in front of ASU Lei wasn't the long-toothed lion wearing azure armor, but the long-toothed lion wearing orange armor with all 7 blades on its body unsheathed. Roar! The blade emitted a cold light, and the long-toothed lion wearing ferocious armor flashed and rushed to the front of the red giant Locke. In the blink of an eye, the long-toothed lion had stabbed deeply into the red giant Locke's body. The seemingly tough and sturdy scales were actually so fragile under the Zenaida lion's blade, unable to withstand a single blow. Boom! Boom! Every time the long-toothed lion's blade stabbed into the red giant Locke's body, the red giant Locke took a step back. Ah! It hurts, ah! With the piercing of the blade, ASU Lei was almost pulled into the abyss of pain and was constantly tortured by the pain. In this increasingly clear and unbreakable pain, ASU Lei's eyes were red, blood was flowing out of his 7 orifices, and his face was ferocious. Die! Die! Lion! Die with me! The red giant Locke raised both of his hands, and under the control of the crazy ASU Lei, he clenched his fists and smashed them towards the long-toothed lion. At this moment, the long-toothed lion's blade had already pierced deeply into the red giant Locke's body, and it was impossible to pull it out in a short period of time to recreate the teleportation scene just now. However, in the face of the iron fist smashing down from above, Ray Minkai and State Zero were completely fearless. Boom! The air suddenly became restless at this moment. For flames also spewed out from the long-toothed lion's shoulders and the top of its legs at this moment. This was the familiar flame that was unique to the plasma engine. Its appearance meant that the long-toothed lion had once again obtained a strong and powerful thrust from the plasma flame. Thus, under the sudden surge of momentum, the red giant lost her, subconsciously staggered a step. And because of this step, the iron fist that was smashing down suddenly loosened in midair. No! At this moment, the sword that was circulating with cold light appeared in front of Su Lei's eyes. Chapter 224. Destructive Chop. This was perhaps one of the most unimpressive moves among the various forms of the original Long Fong Line Zero. According to Ray Minkai's memory, Destructive Chop didn't have any special effects in the original work. It was only used in a storm, withstanding the huge wind pressure, rushing into the storm and chopping off the special weapon backpack equipped by the saber-toothed tiger. But just now, even though Lei Minkai didn't shout out the name of the ultimate move like the main character of the original work, the power that the long-fanged lion Shinada suddenly erupted with was indeed the power of the Destruction Slash. In just a blink of an eye, Shinida's 5 incomparably sharp blades pierced deeply into the red giant's body, beheading Ashirai, who was hidden deep inside his body. Under the powerful destructive force of the Destruction Slash, the red giant that had plunged the city of romance into a sea of flames and destroyed more than half of the capital was cleaved into two. He crashed onto the land that he had ravaged not long ago. Bang! When the blades returned to their original position, Shinida raised his sharp claws and heavily slapped the red giant's head. Then he raised his head and roared loudly, as if announcing his victory. Xianga, Ashirai has failed. The moment the red giant fell, Shangla, who had been monitoring Ashirai's condition, cried out in surprise. Is that so? This is Ashirai's glory. It was also the final destination that he had always dreamed of. Shang, we still have a mission. Compared to Shangla's shock, Shin was much calmer. From the very beginning, when he saw Ashur receive the potion from the special envoy who came from Pandora, he already knew Ashur's outcome. Death. This was Ashirai's fate and the end he pursued. Ashirai, don't worry. There will be more people walking on the road to hell with you. The golden warhorse, Vicingatorix, had already arrived at the edge of the city in the blink of an eye. In the distance, the Black Knight Regiment was converging with the Zero troops led by Akeem. Shang, follow. Yes. Xianga, under Shin's command. Under the lead of the golden warhorse Vicingatorix, the Nightmare troops, sent by the spies hidden in the Langlon West Kingdom, launched a surprise attack on Arkid and Shan, who had just finished their rendezvous. Woo! Woo! In the air, the sound of rocket launchers and howitzers rang out. In an instant, the location where the Black Knights and Zero were located was drowned in a series of explosions. Enemy! Quick! Spread out! Yuqing, take your team and protect the Round Table Knight. The rest, follow me to fight the enemy. When Shani discovered that his side had indeed encountered a sneak attack, he immediately gave the order. On the other side, Akeem did the same. However, compared to Fan's order, Arkid had become much more impulsive. This was because the moment Akeem discovered the party that launched the sneak attack, he was attracted by the golden mech that stood in front of the nightmare that launched the sneak attack. That is... The moment Akeem's gaze met the golden warhorse Vicingatorix, the geas hidden in his body was instantly activated, reminding Akeem of that day. That was the day that turned his life upside down. Die. A kid, go to hell. It was a pair of cold and merciless pupils. It was a face that used to be close to him. It was the bloodline of a brother. On that day, everything changed. Die, die, die. Without any warning, the Alexander that Akeem was riding suddenly rushed out of the formation and rushed towards the ambushers without any fear. Hey, Akeem! Not to mention Shan Law, even the members of Zero, Flow Mountain, and the others were dumbfounded. This was different from the battle plan that Layla had prepared. Why did Ajit suddenly rush out by himself? Unfortunately, Lei Mingkai wasn't here right now. Otherwise, Shan Lu, and the others' doubts would be answered. However, no matter how confused they were, they still had to support their teammates. Everyone, support Akeem with all your strength. Under Shan Law's order, all the Nightmare of the Black Knight Regiment immediately changed their battle strategy and supported Akeem with all their strength so that he could break through the enemy's blockade. After all, no matter how unexpected Akeem's actions were, Shan, Flow Mountain, and the others could still understand his actions. Therefore, before Akeem came into contact with the enemy leader, they had to create an opportunity for Akeem to break through. Zero's Alexander's machine guns and sniper rifles, as well as the rogue modifications used by the Black Knight Regiment, all burst out with their maximum firepower to cover Akeem's breakthrough. Xia Yingking, our intentions have been seen through. As a staff officer, under the quick reaction of the Black Knight Regiment and Zero, she had already noticed that the enemy had already made preparations for their arrival. If this continued, it wouldn't be as simple as losing a jury alone. I know, but I can't leave yet. Shang, shrink the formation. The 2 round table night. I'm afraid they will have to stay in the enemy's house for a while. As soon as Xin finished speaking, the golden warhorse Visingetorix raised its front hooves and quickly rushed down the street. It charged straight at Alexander, who was under the firepower support of the Black Knight Regiment and Zero. Akeem, is that you? The golden warhorse Visingetorix's geared longsword exploded with a roar, rolling up gusts of wind as it slashed at Alexander, who was in a crouching position, quickly rushing over close to the ground. The roar of a machine rang out. Alexander, who was moving forward at a high speed, suddenly jumped to the side. Just as he narrowly brushed against the blade of the gear-shaped long sword and jumped into the air, he immediately twisted his body and transformed from an arthropod into a human form. Then, Alexander raised his right hand and snapped his wrist. A sharp cold light suddenly shot out from his wrist and went straight for the head of the golden warhorse Visingetorix. Just as it was about to pierce through the head of the golden warhorse Visingetorix and the cockpit on its back, Alexander's hidden blade suddenly stopped. And what stopped, it was the left hand of the golden warhorse Visingetorix. I'm really touched. Akeem. Xion's calm voice came from the communication channel. Akeem frowned and moved his hands. Alexander raised his leg and kicked at the left hand of the golden warhorse Visingetorix, as if he wanted to break the left hand that was in the way. Xion didn't care and let the golden warhorse Visingetorix let go of Alexander's hidden blade and took a few steps back to avoid Alexander's counterattack. Akeem, I didn't expect you to still be alive. After both sides stopped, Xion smiled slightly. Akeem didn't reply. He just stared at the golden warhorse Visingetorix on the screen. His gaze seemed to penetrate the golden warhorse Visingetorix's steel body and deeply penetrated Xion's body. Akeem's silence didn't annoy Xion. Instead, the gaze that pierced through the body and transcended time and space made Xion feel a burst of joy. It was as if a bright lamp had appeared in the path of life that he was pursuing and surprised him. Akeem, come here. Come to my side. After Xion controlled the golden warhorse Visingetorix to stop Shang La's intention to help, he once again sent an invitation to Akeem through the public channel. At this moment, everyone present heard Xion's invitation. Fan, Sasa Flo, and the others were all stunned. They were almost bitten by nightmare under Shang La's command. Akeem, what are you doing? Hurry up and get rid of that strange mech. Sasa Flo shouted, and was immediately suppressed by Shang La's targeted attacks. On Fan's side, it was a bit chaotic. If Zero was here, she would probably reprimand Xion's speech. But at this moment, Fan was standing here. Due to the difference between the two sides, Fan was in a dilemma for a moment. She didn't know whether to refute Xion's flowery words or silently watch the situation change. Fortunately, Fan's hesitation was saved by someone who appeared in time. Boom! All of a sudden, the sound of wind whistled. A black shadow fell from the sky. Xian's eyes narrowed, and his hands didn't slow down at all. Under his quick reaction, the golden warhorse Visingetorix flipped its right hand and slashed upward with the strange gear blade in its hand. The black shadow that fell from the sky was suddenly cut in two. However, this wasn't the end. Behind the black shadow that had been cut in two, there was another figure. "Give me your life." When a sharp female voice sounded in the communication channel, the figure that used the black shadow as cover suddenly rushed down from the sky. Buzz! At the same time, a dazzling red light also stung Xian's eyes. Shocked, Xian didn't care about the true identity of the figure and immediately took evasive maneuvers. The golden warhorse Visingetorix's four hooves suddenly jumped on the ground, and with a distance of a few millimeters, Xian felt the fatal threat of the red light. Boom! As soon as the golden warhorse Visingetorix landed, its original position was already covered by the red light. In the blink of an eye, the entire ground that was covered by the red light collapsed and no longer looked the same as before. And on this fragmented ground was the owner of the fatal red light, a red nightmare with a strange slender arm. And the identity of this red nightmare, Xian could recognize it at a glance. A female knight from the Black Knight Order? Xian glanced at the romantic city that was still raged by the sea of fire from the corner of his eyes. So in the middle of the battle, you ran directly here. Hee. Do we still underestimate the power of that lion? Compared to Xian's calmness, Shanghua was a lot more nervous. Because, from the beginning, the second style of the Red Lotus should be one of Asher's main opponents. If the second style of the Red Lotus appeared here in this delicate moment, then what would happen next would very likely be the arrival of a lion that defeated Asher. Xianga. Shanghua called Xian, but didn't say much. Yes, let's retreat first. Looking at the time, that special envoy should have successfully crossed the country's border. The golden warhorse Visingetorix raised the strange gear blade in his hand and suddenly swung it towards the ground. Between the sound of the wind, dust billowed. "A kid, just wait. I'll come and get you." When the dust engulfed the golden warhorse Visingetorix, Xian's words kept echoing in a kid's ears through the international public channel, causing Sean, Sasa Flo, and the others to be afraid. The second style of the Red Lotus blocking in front of Alessandra didn't launch an attack. Instead, it assumed a defensive posture on the spot until the dust dissipated and revealed an empty path. Only then did it relax slightly. Mission completed. Sean, return to White Wolf Fort according to the original plan. Our mission isn't over yet. Yes, return immediately. Regarding the retreat of Xian and the others, Sean didn't express any regret. Instead, she simply returned to White Wolf Fort according to the original plan. "A kid, let's go. Otherwise, our beautiful commander's plan will fail." Sasa Flo opened his mouth to remind a kid who was staring blankly at the direction where the golden warhorse Visingetorix disappeared. "Yes, I know. This is the mission." A kid lowered his eyes and nodded, making others unable to see his expression. Roar. However, before they could reorganize their formation, a steel lion wearing azure armor quickly chased after them from the direction of the City of Romance. Black Knight Regiment, 0 unit. Report the losses. With the arrival of this steel lion, Rei Minkai's voice also sounded. Except for the loss of 3 row modifications, there are no casualties. Sean saw the appearance of the Long Fong Lion 0 and finally breathed a sigh of relief. After gathering the second form of Red Lotus and the Long Fong Lion 0, this escort team finally had the defensive power to safely return to White Wolf Fort again. 0 unit has no losses. A kid glanced at the status of his teammates and said, "Yes, Karen, a kid, the rest of the journey is up to you. I must hurry to the border as soon as possible." After letting the Long Fong Lion 0 scan the surrounding situation, Rei Minkai said, "Yes, understood." After handing over the Round Table Knight to Layla for safekeeping, Karen and the 0 unit led by a kid will enter the carriage. The remaining Black Knight Regiment will stay in White Wolf Fort to protect the safety of White Wolf Fort. When the hunter O Fong Lion turned around, parted ways with Shan and the others, and rushed towards the border at full speed, Rei Mingkai's order also sounded in everyone's ears. With the end of the battle at Romance City, it could be said that the war had entered the next stage. Chapter 225 Black Forest. This tranquil forest was once again disrupted by the chaos and destruction brought about by the war. Since the beginning of the Britannia Empire's attack on Europe, the Black Forest had become the last line of defense in the north of the Lanchi Empire, forming the last fortress for the Lanchi Empire and its allies. At this moment, the four major knight regiments of Europe, which used to only launch an attack on the scale of a single knight regiment, launched a full-scale attack under the leadership of the Special Envoy, who came from afar. Special Envoy. Our spies lurking in Lan Lan, she have sent a message. Number 3 has failed. St. Michael Knight Regiment Commander Shin Hugaskengo has also led the remaining subordinates into the lurking stage to prepare for the next mission. The attendant who received the news from a special channel reported the situation respectfully to the beautiful woman standing in the middle of the bridge. Oh, the new regiment commander failed? How rare. His Majesty the Emperor actually made a mistake. It doesn't matter. Inform everyone to proceed according to the plan. The beautiful woman was a little surprised, then gave the order with a chuckle. Yes. With the departure of the attendant, the beautiful woman's gaze also fell on the big screen not far in front of her. The fierce battle from the Black Forest was playing on it. From a moment, the four major knight regiments launched a full-scale attack. The beautiful woman had already guessed that someone would come to stop them. However, what he did not expect was that the other party had indeed come, but the mech that clearly did not come from this world just stood quietly on the peak of the mountain behind, silently watching the Black Forest that was engulfed by the flames of war that were getting more and more intense. Is he waiting for my backup plan? But the production of the marker really took a lot of effort from the doctor, and it can't be used so easily. The beautiful woman suppressed the impulse in her heart and kept convincing herself with the rarity of the marker, lest her premature use of the marker lead to the failure of the plan of Dr. Ciceri and His Majesty the Emperor. However, the plan was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. Even though the beautiful woman had the status of a special envoy and could command the four major knight regiments to obey her, she was still subject to some restrictions. For example, she, who was not born in this world, had no idea about the origins and operation patterns of the four knight regiments, and even the thought patterns and operation patterns of the four commanders of the four knight regiments. Unfortunately, among the people standing on the opposing side, there were people who were extremely familiar with the movements of these knight regiment commanders and their subordinate knight regiments. Cornelia Libertania. Her Royal Highness, who had fought for the Britannia Empire in the past, had given up everything and made up her mind to help her sister Euphemia. Her courage was beyond the expectations of the beautiful special envoy. The only person who was able to predict this was sitting silently on the throne, coldly watching all of this happen. Your Highness, Regions A1 and B3 have been completely suppressed. The teams in those regions have already turned to the nearby regions to assist the other teams in suppressing their own regions. At the foot of the mountain where Pirate Gauda stood, Veretta sat in her own Valkyrie's cockpit and explained the current situation of the battlefield to Cornelia in detail. From a moment Rei Mingkai and Zero decided on the plan, Veretta had automatically become Cornelia's advisor, giving her advice and gathering the information of the entire battlefield. Yes, I understand. Veretta, let K1 begin. Cornelia was silent for a moment, and then gave an order that surprised Veretta. K1, that is Pirate Gauda that Her Royal Highness Euphemia is piloting. But Your Highness, although Pirate Gauda's operation is part of the plan, isn't the timing a bit too early? Veretta lowered her head to look at the plan and subconsciously raised her doubts. Veretta's doubts didn't arouse Cornelia's disgust. Instead, she revealed a trace of gratification. After all, If Euphemia's dream was to be realized, then it would inevitably mean that the entire noble class of the Britannia Empire would welcome a great purge. Thus, the large and small nobles that were lying on the empire's body would be purged, and the empire would be rejuvenated. In this kind of situation, nobles loyal to Euphemia would inevitably be born. Apart from Ray Minkai and herself, Cornelia didn't mind picking out a few core members from Department Q that had followed Ray Minkai and herself for a long time. They would become the new nobles to supplement the empire. Veretta, plans are dead, people are alive. I know that Pirate Gouda and Euphemia can't casually move, but in the current battle situation, you have me and I have you. Whether it is our Department Q or the 4-Knight regiments, both sides are already intertwined, and there is no difference between the two sides. Cornelia's finger swiped across the touch screen in front of her, and an order was issued for the other teams to move at high speed and provide firepower support for the other two teams. Moreover, our Department Q has been in a disadvantageous position since the beginning. Although we are currently in a stalemate with the enemy, as time passes, our strength will be gradually devoured by the large number of enemies, and there will be a tendency for us to lose. As she spoke, Cornelia turned her head to look at Pirate Gouda, who was standing on top of the mountain. If we only use Pirate Gouda at that time, then the other party's hidden trump card will be revealed. At that time, even if Pirate Gouda has great power, he will inevitably be in a situation where he will be surrounded by enemies. So, this stalemate situation is the best time to use Pirate Gouda. Veretta's eyes lit up. It seemed that she had thought it through. Yes, looking at the time, Ray Minkai and the others may have already solved the matter in the City of Romance. As long as we open up the situation before they arrive, even if the enemy has a strong trump card, we will have nothing to fear. Cornelia clenched her right hand and waved it forward. Then she took a deep breath and asked slowly, UFFI, did you hear what I said? The screen in front of Cornelia flashed, and Euphemia, who had already put on her helmet, appeared on it. Euphemia nodded slowly. I heard. Sister Royal, your speculation is not wrong. Just now, Kai sent a message. The matter in the capital has been solved. He is now rushing here. As expected, after Veretta shouted in surprise, she immediately looked at Cornelia and asked, Then, Your Highness. Now, can we begin? Cornelia nodded. Yes, we can begin. Since the enemy has presented a great opportunity with both hands, then we don't need to be polite. UFFI, be careful. I, and everyone in Department Q, will provide cover for you from the flanks. Understood, Sister Royal. Then, Euphemia, Pirate Gouda attack. With a firm gaze, Pirate Gouda, which Euphemia was piloting, disappeared from the top of the mountain and rushed into the black forest like a storm. In an instant, a blazing light tore apart the dense branches of the black forest. When it broke through the darkness of the black forest, it also brought a series of explosions that symbolized destruction into the forest. Sir Special Envoy, the enemy's cloak has begun to move. Please give instructions as soon as possible. In a short span of a minute, we've already lost 10 Sunderlands. The flustered attendant almost ran to the side of the glamorous woman Phyllis. Finally willing to move? You really picked a good time. The glamorous woman Phyllis smiled slightly and coldly glanced at the flustered attendant. She sneered and said, What are you panicking for? Let the 4-Knight regiments throw their reserve forces into the battlefield. Let them offer their loyalty to the Empire. But, then why not go quickly? Don't tell me you want to be a knight and personally participate in this glorious battle. Phyllis's gaze suddenly turned bone-chilling, causing the hesitant attendant to shudder involuntarily. Yes, now, immediately pass on Sir Special Envoy's order. In the next moment, the attendant still passed on the order that was tantamount to suicide to the 4-Knight regiments. Report. The 4-Knight regiments have all launched their attack, but due to the enemy's strength being too great, the regimental commanders have jointly requested for reinforcements. Reinforcements? Oof, that's true. With just your toys, you really can't contend against Gout to pass on my order. Let the number 3 target attack. Yes. Let's not talk about who the number 3 target Phyllis was talking about was. After the Knight regiments sent all their forces, the situation of the entire battlefield immediately reversed. The strength of the pirate Gauda was obvious to all. However, this didn't mean that everyone in the Knight Order would foolishly send themselves to the pirate Gundam's doorstep and be slaughtered. Thus, from a moment all the members of the Knight Order stepped forward, all the commanders of the Knight Order reached a consensus. That was to wipe out the forces surrounding the pirate Gauda's flank as quickly as possible, and then concentrate their forces to besiege the pirate Gauda. At that time, even if the pirate Gauda had heaven-defying strength, it would be difficult for him to survive under the full attack of the Knight regiments. The Knight regiment's plan was seen through by Cornelia the moment they sent all their forces. Haha, it's just as I expected. It seems that without the new St. Michael regimental commander, the remaining Knight regiments are still so stubborn. After Cornelia showed a mocking smile, she raised her hand and swiped a few times on the touchscreen. A new battle plan was immediately transmitted to the entire army. In the blink of an eye, all the mechs protecting the flanks of the pirate Gundam changed their direction of movement. Within a short span of a few minutes, they had completed a formation change. From the assault formation used by the flanks, they changed into a defensive formation where they stood on the spot. As for the pirate Gundam, who was previously protected by them, at this moment, he had become a lone wolf hanging in the open. This sudden change caused a setback for the knights who had targeted the flank as their target. One side was imposing and unparalleled. The other side was as solid as a rock and impenetrable. The moment the two sides collided, there was a burst of dazzling light that symbolized the last moments of life. And these dazzling lights mostly came from the 4 Knight regiments of Sunderland. Sir Envoy, our attack has been thwarted. The enemy has seen through our attack strategy. The moment the attack began, they have already taken corresponding measures to counterattack and cause us heavy losses. Phillies realized that from the moment the battle began, he didn't seem to have heard any good news. What a useless guy. Phillies secretly cursed and raised her hand to take out the communication terminal she used. Marker number 3. Now it's time for your performance. Attack. Roger. The moment a dull and hoarse voice sounded, the sun suddenly rose from behind the mothership Phillies was on. Boom. At this moment, the world lost its color in thunder rumble. In the whole world, except for the sun rising from behind the mothership, there was no other light that could illuminate this world. Even the sun that was originally high up in the sky was the same. Beep, 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 beep. In the blink of an eye, Cornelia, Valletta, and the others heard the high-energy density radar in the cockpit emitting ear-piercing screeches. But even if the ears of Cornelia, Valletta, and the others were almost pierced by this ear-piercing sound, they couldn't respond in this short moment. The only one who could respond in this moment was the pirate Gao da Boom. It was slow to say, but fast to do. The moment the small sun rose, the pirate Gao Da's figure blocked in front of Cornelia, Valletta, and the others. The silver-gray liquid metal condensed into a cloak was completely unfolded, and in a huge, airtight way, the nightmare driven by the pirates Gao Da, Cornelia, and Valletta were all wrapped in it. Immediately after, the small sun smashed into the giant metal barrier formed by the Gundam's silver-gray liquid metal. Boom! Darkness came. The wind howled. The moment the small sun completely exploded, whether it was the mothership at the back or the nightmare used by the Sunderland and other Knight regiments that could only react in a short period of time, they were all blown away by the wind that swept across the world. They were powerlessly struggling in the wind formed by the explosion of the small sun. In his ears was the sound of the wind raging on the metal armor of the mothership. In front of him were many attendants struggling to survive on the tactical command platform. In this situation, Phillies, who could still stand firmly in the bridge, slowly had a cruel smile on his face. The power of the third target is indeed the perfect masterpiece that the current doctors can achieve. Then target number 3, finish off that Gundam once and for all. Roger. Phillies ordered, and a new sun rose again. Chapter 2:26. A dazzling sun suddenly lit up on the horizon. The huge steel beast that was moving rapidly towards the Black Forest stopped the moment the sun rose. It turned around and rushed to the top of a cliff not far away, looking in the direction of the rising sun. What a strong high-energy reaction! White Cat State Zero's figure appeared in the cockpit of a long-toothed lion, looking at the sun in the distance with a dignified expression. Has the enemy revealed their trump card? Ray Minkai's expression was also very dignified. As another pilot of Pirate Gouda, Ray Minkai knew that the silver-gray liquid armor that Pirate Gouda was currently equipped with had a strong defensive ability. But at this time, the sun that rose from the horizon made Ray Minkai subconsciously worry about the situation of Pirate Gouda and Euphemia. State Zero, can you contact Pirate Gouda? No, I was just responding to a short communication with Harrow, but the moment this high-energy reaction appeared, all communications with Harrow were cut off. White Cat State Zero shook its head. Then, what are we waiting for? Let's go. Ray Minkai's gaze changed a few times, but in the end, he could not suppress the worry in his heart. Under Ray Minkai's urging, the long-toothed lion in blue armor immediately jumped down from the cliff and rushed towards the sun that rose from the horizon at full speed. While the long-toothed lion was speeding up, the battle that broke out in the Black Forest had also entered a new stage. Sister Royal, Veretta. Everyone in Department Q. Are you okay? In the darkness, Euphemia's anxious voice constantly sounded, echoing back and forth in Veretta's ears. Cough, cough, cough. We're fine. UFFI. We're not injured. After Cornelia coughed a few times, she glanced at the flickering screen in front of her while responding to Euphemia's question. After Cornelia's check and response, Euphemia finally felt relieved. The attack just now was undoubtedly frightening. But because Gundam and Euphemia reacted in time, they fully unleashed the protective net condensed from a silver-gray liquid metal. Almost everyone was well protected under this protective net. It's good that you're fine. Sister Royal, Veretta, everyone get ready. The enemy has not been eliminated. Following Euphemia's firm voice, Cornelia's eyes lit up. It turned out that the pirate Gundam had taken back the giant protective net that had saved everyone. However, Cornelia discovered that the Gundam's silver-gray cloak seemed to have dimmed even more. Was it caused by the attack just now? Sister Royal, the enemy's attack is coming. Just as Euphemia's voice sounded, the sky lit up again with a flash of light. Everyone, retreat. As soon as Cornelia saw the flash of light, she immediately shouted the order to retreat. Woo-woo. The sky was occupied by a series of sharp whistles. Boom, boom, boom. Less than a few seconds after the whistle sounded, a series of flashes streaked across the sky like meteors, densely falling towards the area where Cornelia and the others were. In an instant, the entire area was flooded by the flashes. Your Highness, Veretta, who was lucky enough to escape from the flashes, did not have time to gather all the subordinates that escaped from the attack. She could only stare blankly at the area flooded by the flashes. Cornelia and Euphemia did not escape from that area. Looking at the rainstorm-like flashes that densely fell on the area and set off a series of explosions, Veretta's heart seemed to have turned cold. This time, their operation revolved around the two royal sisters, Cornelia and Euphemia. If something were to happen to the two princesses at this critical time, then it would mean that all their efforts so far would be in vain. Fortunately, in the midst of the rolling smoke and explosions, Veretta saw a red light. And Veretta seemed to recognize this red light. That might be the beam shield that the pirate Gouda was wearing. Due to the Gundam's new liquid metal armor, its defensive capabilities were simply too perfect. Therefore, Veretta and the others did not immediately remember that the pirate Gouda had two beam shields. The flashes that fell from the sky gradually faded, and the explosions that were much louder than before also weakened a lot at this moment. In the gradually dissipating smoke and explosions, the pirate Gao Da's figure appeared in front of Veretta. He raised his arms and used the beam shield to resist the attacks with all his strength. Messiah, which was piloted by Cornelia, was also in a similar posture. Although Messiah's radiation shield couldn't completely block the flash rain falling from the sky, it could firmly block the aftermath of the explosion. Your Highness Cornelia, Your Highness Euphemia, Your Highness, are you okay? Veretta looked at the pirates Gao Da and Messiah, who seemed to be safe and sound, in surprise. Not really. Messiah's energy has dropped by 50%. UFFI, what about you? Cornelia's face was a little tense. She didn't expect that Messiah, which was developed from Lancelot's technology and Raymond Kai's data manipulation, would have a situation of energy shortage in the first battle. If the enemy attacked again with the flashes, Cornelia would have to abandon the body she had just obtained. No, Sister Royal. The pirate Gouda was powered by the nuclear furnace, so there would be no accidents of energy shortage in the battle. Nuclear furnace? It's really a technology that surprised me. Cornelia sighed slightly and decided not to wander in front of the pirate Gouda. This was because no one knew if the enemy would set their sights on the pirate Gundam because of this and launch a fatal attack on it. If that was really the case, the people beside the pirate Gundam would probably be hit by stray bullets. From the looks of it, this should be the biggest obstacle in this battle. Cornelia's gaze fell on the mechs that were once again guarding the pirate Gundam, and she shook her head slightly. UFFI, how long can you hold on? I have a way to stall for time. Say it. Sister Royal. Euphemia didn't encounter any problems. Instead, she gave a straightforward answer. After a while, the pirate Gao jumped, and under the propulsion of the thrusters, he flew at full speed through the group of enemies that were blown away by the wind caused by the explosion. Enemy attack. The mysterious body on the opposite side is rushing towards us. The pirate Gao Da's movement wasn't hidden by Euphemia. On the contrary, Euphemia didn't forget to strengthen the pirate Gao Da's presence, forcing the enemies on the entire battlefield to be able to see the pirate Gao Da's existence. This was undoubtedly a simple strategy of creating a diversion. As long as people with discerning eyes weren't stupid, they should be able to guess the pirate Gao Da's target from its movements. So, should they return to save the mothership targeted by the pirate Gao Da, or continue to carry out the mission? After struggling for a while, the knight, who regained control of his body, drove his body without saying a word and quickly followed the pirate Gao Da. They tried to raise the machine gun in their hands and intercept the pirate Gao Da. However, even if these enemies reacted quickly, it was already a step too late. The pirate Gao Da's high-profile actions made it so that even without the report, Phillies could see through it immediately. Number 5. It's your turn. Number 3. Standby. Roger. Behind the mothership, there was a sudden commotion in the forest that was blown over by the wind caused by the explosion just now. As the branches were lifted, a slender metal body with a height of 17 to 18 meters slowly stood up from the tree pit. After pausing silently for a few seconds, it suddenly raised its head and stared at the defense line where the pirate Gouda was. In the next second, the 17 to 18 meters tall figure of Gao suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in front of the pirate Gouda. It suddenly pulled out a beam of light from its wrist. Swoosh! The light flashed, and a beam of light slashed on the beam shield raised by the pirate Gao Da Zap. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the moment the beam sword and the beam shield collided, an energy explosion erupted, separating the slender voice from the pirate Gao Da so strong. With the help of Harrow, Euphemia, who was sitting inside the pirate Gouda, stopped the pirate Gao Da's retreating footsteps. She concentrated on looking at the enemy who had also stopped in his footsteps but had slashed into a large area of trees. Compared to the pirate Gao Da's rigid lines, the figure in front of her was slender and appeared to be exceptionally beautiful. It could be said like this. If the pirate Gauda was compared to a majestic and powerful man, then the enemy in front of her was a slender and beautiful woman. That's also an MS. When Euphemia saw the enemy's appearance, she couldn't help but be stunned. Whether it was the nightmare or the Gauda's series of MS, Euphemia seemed to have never seen such a beautiful body that was so feminine. Of course, the Nobel Gauda was not one of them. In the instant that Euphemia was stunned, the beautiful figure suddenly flashed and disappeared. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The moment the enemy disappeared, Harrow and the others immediately shouted out a warning. Euphemia was startled. She pulled her left hand and moved her index finger 3 times in a row. The pirate Gauda's left arm shook and pushed outwards with force. With a flash of light, the beam shield appeared once again. Boom! It was another explosion caused by the collision of energy. The pirate Gauda and the beautiful figure were separated by the energy explosion again. But this time, no matter if it was Euphemia or the enemy, they were all prepared for this explosion. When the pirate Gauda's right foot retreated, for barbs popped out from the bottom of his foot and pierced deeply into the ground to alleviate the strong inertia caused by the collision of energy. And the enemy used a method that was the opposite of the pirate Gauda to alleviate the strong impact. The beautiful figure could be seen twisting its body in midair, making the body that was clearly forged out of metal do movements that only a skilled gymnast could do, continuously using this to offset the impact. Moreover, at the moment when the impact was about to be offset, it actually reversed its body again, forcibly twisting in midair with an even more strange movement than before. With a turn, like an arrow leaving the bow, it quickly flew towards the pirate Gauda, who had just cushioned the impact. The light in front of Euphemia's eyes flashed, and she was actually unable to make any movements. However, Euphemia was unable to make any defensive movements in time, but that didn't mean that Euphemia would die under the enemy's strange attack. One must know that in order to protect Euphemia, the Ministry of Justice's Shi Hui sent her masterpieces, those Harrow that had some magical abilities. And at this moment, it was also the best time for the Harrow to appear. The pirate Gauda's mask swiped, revealing the rarely used beam cannon hidden deep under the mask. And at this critical moment, the pirate Gauda's face flashed, and the beam cannon under the Harrow's command poured its powerful force forward without any hesitation. Boom! At this moment, the particles burst out with a crazy roar, and an incomparably dazzling light drowned the front of the pirate Gauda, and the beautiful figure also became one of the drowned at this moment. At this moment, everything was silent. The next second, the density of the particles in front of the pirate Gauda reached a limit that was enough to blow up everything around it. Thus, with a powerful roar, the small sun that covered the entire black forest rose. Rumble, a huge deep pit, the whistling wind, a blazing air current rose from the ground. And the flames that burned the black forest was the scene in the black forest at this moment. And in the center of this scene, there were 2 figures standing. The pirate Gauda. The silver-gray cloak became even dimmer at this moment, as if it was a creature that was about to die, gradually losing its unique vitality. In addition, the skull on the pirate Gauda's head was also blown away in the explosion just now, and a V-shaped antenna was also blown away. Cracks spread all over the pirate's body, reaching as high as his head. At this moment, the pirate Gauda was the most miserable since he became the body of Ray Minkai and Euphemia. On the other hand, the opponent's situation seemed to be even more miserable than the pirate Gauda. As the main target of the pirate Gauda's mouth cannon, half of the beautiful body was shattered, leaving only the broken skeleton that was barely supporting the entire body, not letting it fall. In addition, the other side of the body that was still intact in front of him was full of cracks. Pieces of bright gray quickly turned into black fragments, peeling off the body like weathered stones, and then dissipating in the wind. Chapter 227. Silence. Half of the enemy's body was cut off by Pirate Gout Da's verbal cannon, leaving only the broken skeleton behind. It seemed to have lost all energy reactions. It stood in front of Pirate Gout like a dead object, allowing the cracks that kept appearing to quickly occupy the remaining half of the body. In the end, it had the same ending. Ka! Rumble. Between the cracks that tore apart the body, countless fragments fell to the ground with a rumbling sound, setting off bursts of dust with sparks. Reaction. Reaction is silent. Sir Special Envoy. When the beautiful figure appeared, the Britannia side was undoubtedly excited. First, it was the terrifying, powerful beam attack that could suppress Cornelia and others in an instant. Then, it was the strange and unpredictable mobility that could fight Pirate Gouda back and forth. Even in the middle, the beautiful figure appeared several times to suppress Pirate Gouda. Everyone who witnessed all of this seemed to see the hope of victory in sight. However, they never thought that at the moment when victory was about to be ushered in, the beautiful figure that suppressed Pirate Gouda would actually be turned around in an instant and end up with such a tragic ending. This made everyone on the bridge at a loss. However, compared to them, Phyllis's performance was much more natural. After all, her vision was far beyond the humans of this world. Although the requirements for the production of the marker were very strict for Dr. Cicely and herself, they had experienced many situations before where the markers that they worked hard to produce were destroyed by the enemy in the blink of an eye. Therefore, this was not a big deal. Number 3. It's your turn. Phyllis withdrew her gaze from the main screen and said flatly. However, Number 3, who was extremely obedient in the past, did not respond, nor did he send out a signal to start the operation. It seemed that at some point in time that Phyllis did not know, Marker 3's reaction had fallen into silence. Phyllis waited for a while and found that Marker 3 really did not respond to her command. She immediately took out a device from her waist and quickly pressed a button on it. What? Number 3's location has been discovered. It didn't matter if he didn't press the button, but as soon as Felix pressed the button that could immediately discover the location of marker number 3, he was immediately shocked by the data that came back. Marker 3 was not disobeying Phyllis's orders, but because from the beginning, Marker 3 was caught up in the battle and could not take care of Phyllis's situation. Who is it? You can actually find the location of marker number 3? Phyllis's eyes flashed. He swiped his thumb over the device, and another button hidden inside the device popped out. Immediately after, as Phyllis pressed the button again, an image appeared on the big screen. From the terrain shown in the image, it should be a low-lying, inconspicuous valley. In the middle of the valley, a river with abundant water ran through the center of the valley and flowed out of the valley. It was precisely because there was an abundant water source here that Phyllis placed marker number 3, which had some requirements for heat dissipation, here from the very beginning, so that when marker 3 launched an attack, it would be able to obtain enough heat dissipation conditions from the surrounding environment. However, Phyllis did not expect that this remote valley would be found by the enemy. Moreover, the enemy who found marker number 3 was not the pirate Gouda, nor was it Cornelia and the others who were feared by the 4 major knight regiments, but a fierce steel beast. Lion? It's actually him. Looking at the steel lion in blue armor on the screen, nimbly attacking marker number 3, Phyllis couldn't help but be surprised. Yes, the real culprit who made marker number 3 fall into a fierce battle was not someone else, but the predator lion and Ray Minkai, who rushed from the capital of Langlon West to the border of the country at the fastest speed. When marker number 3 launched a powerful high-energy attack, the predator lion and Ray Minkai, who were already close to the border of the country, discovered the existence of marker number 3. However, because the surrounding terrain was somewhat complicated, the predator lion couldn't determine the location of marker number 3 for a while. Therefore, there was a battle between the pirate Gouda and the beautiful body. Otherwise, Lame Minkai, who had rushed to the border as soon as possible, wouldn't have let Euphemia face the enemy with strange means alone. Fortunately, with Euphemia's efforts and Harrow's miraculous stroke, this strange enemy was finally killed. The predator lion, who was looking for marker number 3 in the surrounding area, also quickly confirmed the location of marker number 3 under the cover of this battle. One fell, the other rose. At the moment when the battle between the pirate Gauda and the beautiful body ended, the predator lion rushed down the hillside like a gust of wind, attacking the huge figure lying in the middle of the river. Blue lightning flashed, followed by a flash of golden light. Cha! The predator lion landed heavily on the ground. The powerful inertia of rushing down the hillside made the predator lion draw 4 deep scratches on the riverbank full of sand and stones. Dust flew, and the predator lion looked up at the huge figure standing in the middle of the river. It was a dark gray metal armor with uneven patterns on its surface. At first glance, a huge cannon about 3 meters in diameter extended from the back of the huge figure. It was like an unsheathed sword that pierced the sky. In order to support the use of the huge cannon, a pair of thick giant arms that were almost the same diameter as the huge cannon tightly protected the fragile heart. Moreover, on this pair of giant arms, a deep claw mark was slowly disappearing. It was being rapidly repaired by an unknown force. Minkai, can you recognize this guy's real body? The White Cat State Zero's low roar sounded in Ray Minkai's ears. From a moment he saw the huge figure, Ray Minkai felt that the White Cat State Zero's emotions seemed to have become unstable. From what Ray Minkai felt, the White Cat State Zero seemed to be angered by the huge figure standing in the middle of the river. In surprise, Lei Minkai could not help but focus his attention and size up the huge figure that slowly lowered its arms and turned to face the hunting lion. Huge cannon, huge arms, a huge body with a wide top and narrow bottom, a flat forehead, a mouth that protruded forward, and a pair of pupils that flowed with red light. Gorilla, Death Vajra. No, the White Cat State Zero denied Ray Minkai's name for the huge figure. Not Death Vajra. It's Destruction Vajra. Minkai, do you still remember? In the war that destroyed our hometown world, this Destruction Vajra was our comrade and fought against the abyss with us. At this point, the White Cat State Zero's anger turned into the predator lion's roar. Roar. Destruction. Look at you now. I didn't expect that you would become their slave. Before Ray Minkai could take action, the predator lion suddenly erupted under the anger of the White Cat State Zero. It once again turned into a blue lightning, crazily surrounding the huge figure that the White Cat State Zero had turned into the Destruction Vajra and launched an attack. 1, 2, 3. The predator lion that turned into a blue flash did not have the slightest mercy, nor did it care about the friendship of a comrade. Instead, it crazily used its sharp laser claws to strike the Destruction Vajra's body, leaving deep claw marks that showed the bones. In the face of the predator lion's ferocious attack, the Destruction Vajra did not fight back. Instead, it adopted the same approach as before, raising its arms and firmly protecting its weaknesses, allowing the predator lion to attack it wantonly. Roar! The predator lion that could not attack for a long time let out an unwilling roar. After crushing a huge rock by the river, it stared fiercely at the Destruction Vajra that raised its arms to protect itself. It was too hard. Moreover, the other party seemed to have a strong self-healing ability. No matter how many deep wounds the predator lion's laser claws made on the other party could heal these wounds in a short time. Calm down. State Zero. Lei Minkai, who had lost most of his memories in the world of Sot's mechanical beasts, was not as excited as he was when he faced the destructive guardian ape. He still remembered clearly that he had fought alongside the destructive guardian ape. Therefore, Ray Minkai could keep calm and watch the predator lion's crazy attack and the Destruction Vajra's defense from a bystander's point of view. Calm down? Hey, maybe he needs to calm down. White Cat State Zero growled in a low voice and laughed at himself. This guy's good at defense and counterattack. If I continue like this, I'm afraid this guy will seize the opportunity and turn defeat into victory. Ray Minkai did not make fun of the White Cat State Zero's self-mockery. Instead, he nodded. Since the White Cat State Zero could laugh at how reckless its behavior was just now, it meant that the White Cat State Zero had begun to calm down. Kai, maybe it's a good thing that you lost the memory of our hometown. After all, it's really hard to see a comrade who went through life and death with you on the opposite side. White Cat State Zero sighed secretly, and then its figure disappeared from the cockpit. Kai, I'll leave the rest to you. Facing its former comrade, White Cat State Zero chose to let Ray Minkai take full responsibility for handling the situation. Ray Minkai nodded, and his hands clenched the joystick. The Predator Lion's figure flashed and turned into blue lightning again. In an instant, the not-so-spacious riverbank was surrounded by the Predator Lion's figure. The scarlet eyes of the destruction gorilla kept following the movements of the Predator Lion. Its huge arms were raised at all times, firmly protecting its weak points. It did not give the Predator Lion a chance. While the Predator Lion was moving around, Ray Minkai's gaze fell on the relatively small hind legs of the destruction gorilla. Judging from the speed of the destruction gorilla, this pair of relatively small hind legs could support the destruction gorilla, which could keep up with the Predator Lion's movement. No matter how much the Predator Lion relied on its flexibility to force the Annihilation Gorilla to do all kinds of actions that were enough to overload its tiny hind limbs, Ray Minkai was surprised to find that the strength of the tiny hind limbs was far beyond his expectations. Is it because of the transformation of the abyss? Ray Minkai thought about it, and could only attribute the extraordinary strength of the destruction gorilla's small hind legs to the abyss. So what about this? Ray Minkai's eyes flashed, and with a push of his hands, the two plasma engines on the back of the Predator Lion unfolded at the same time, allowing the plasma engines below to extend backward. Two more powerful and brighter plasma flames erupted instantly. Boom! The moment the plasma flames roared, the figure of the Predator Lion suddenly flashed and disappeared from the sight of the destruction gorilla. The destruction gorilla, who had been in a defensive state, turned its eyes again and again. It even did not forget to turn left and right while maintaining a defensive posture, trying to find the trace of the Predator Lion. The result was predictable. The Predator Lion, which broke out at extreme speed, was an existence that the destruction gorilla, who only knew how to defend, could not find. Here, big guy. Sure enough, after the destruction gorilla turned around several times and could not find a Predator Lion, Ray Minkai's mocking laughter suddenly sounded. Boom! Golden light flashed behind the destruction gorilla. It was the Predator Lion that took the opportunity to launch a fatal combo while it was moving at extreme speed. The Predator Lion's front claws were flowing with deadly laser light. Every time it waved its claws, it could tear apart the uneven dark gray metal armor on the back of the destruction gorilla. As the laser claws waved, countless metal armor flew. The destruction gorilla, who was able to remain unmoved under the frenzied attack of the Predator Lion, staggered a few steps forward when Ray Minkai saw the opportunity to drive the Predator Lion to attack. It could not turn around at all to resist the Predator Lion's attack. It was not until the Predator Lion used all its strength to launch the most powerful attack so far at the bottom of the giant cannon on the back of the destruction gorilla that the injuries it suffered from the Predator Lion's laser claws finally erupted at this moment. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the giant cannon on the back of the destruction gorilla instantly burst out all the powerful energy it contained. The only difference was that the explosion at this moment was not launched at the enemy, but because of the continuous attack of the Predator Lion. The explosion caused by the energy imbalance that was enough to devour everything cut off the entire river in an instant. What's more, the surrounding riverbanks were blown away by the explosion. No matter how large the rocks were, they were all turned into ashes in this explosion. Carried by the blazing heat, they swept through the entire valley and dragged the originally lush green valley into a terrible world called the Fiery Hell. Roar! Suddenly, a terrifying bestial roar rang out from the center of the blazing hell. It tore apart the flames that had spread across the entire valley, revealing a body riddled with wounds. However, fiery red streams of light had healed the terrifying wounds all over its body. Even though the giant cannon had been destroyed by the predator lion, the momentum of the huge body did not retreat, but soared rapidly to a terrifying extent. It was as if the one standing in the fiery hell at this moment was a destructive behemoth from the barbaric era. Destruction Gorilla. When the white cat-stayed Zero's figure reappeared in the cockpit, the predator lion, standing on the cliff, also roared at the Destruction Gorilla that slowly stepped out of the fiery hell. Perhaps the Destruction Gorilla at this moment was the real Destruction Gorilla. Chapter 228. Ao. Ao. Amidst the raging sea of fire, the Destruction Guardian Vajra, whose body was full of cracks, raised its thick arms, pounded its chest frantically, and let out a thunderous roar. Amidst the roars, the flames around the destructive guardian flickered with the undulation of the roars. It's coming! As soon as the white cat-stayed Zero's voice sounded, the Destruction Guardian Vajra, who was still pounding its chest and demonstrating to the predator lion, suddenly leaned over and crossed the sea of fire like a gust of wind and rushed to the front of the predator lion. The black shadow rushed, and the wind suddenly blew. Raymond Kai's heart skipped a beat, and his hands pushed and pulled. The predator lion immediately dodged to the left and escaped from the shadow. Boom! When the predator lion's figure landed, the place where it stood before had been smashed by the giant arms of the Destruction Guardian Vajra. Ayo! Woo woo woo! The roar sounded again, and the black shadow came again in front of the predator lion. Raymond Kai's hands did not stop moving. Instead, he drove the predator lion more flexibly and escaped safely from the bombardment of the terrifying giant arms of the Destruction Guardian Vajra again and again. Although the momentum caused by the Destruction Guardian Vajra's attack was quite terrifying, and the riverbank had been filled with the deep pit smashed by the Destruction Guardian Vajra, Ray Minkai only had doubts in his heart. It was too simple. No matter how scary the Destruction Guardian Vajra's attack was, it could not hit the predator lion. As long as the predator lion moved slightly, this seemingly terrible, but no, this was a fatal attack for other airframes, and it could be easily avoided. Kai, don't underestimate this guy. At that time, only this guy could join forces with the predator lion to kill wantonly under the siege of the abyss. In the blink of an eye, the white cat-stayed Zero's figure appeared in the cockpit again. There was a look of nostalgia and caution on its face. It was conceivable that the Destruction Guardian Vajra, who was once a comrade and now an enemy, was a target that the white cat-stayed Zero needed to treat with caution. Ray Minkai did not say much. After a faint response, he continued to fight with the Destruction Guardian Vajra. During this time, the Destruction Guardian Vajra and the Predator Lion were like a pair of good friends playing hide-and-seek. They chased each other, but they could not touch each other. Due to the fear of the Destruction Guardian Vajra's attack at this time, Ray Minkai did not try to rush behind the Destruction Guardian Vajra with his speed. However, this did not mean of Ray Vajra, of the Predator Vajra. Splash! The Vajra Vajra! 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 Vajra 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 of a Vajra! Vajra Vajra! 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 Vajra Vajra! Vajra! Vaya! Priyat! Vajra! Vara! Vajra! Lion! Gulialu! The boiling river water was rolling, and the fishes that had been killed by the boiling river water quietly floated to the surface of the water. One after another, they crashed into the radiation claws of the predator lion. Then, in the blink of an eye, they were scorched by the high temperature emitted by the radiation claws and flowed downstream along with the boiling river water. Ayo, ayo, ayo! The scene created by the predator lion did not scare the Destruction Gorilla away. On the contrary, the Destruction Gorilla returned to the middle of the river in the next moment, facing the predator lion, and kept beating its solid chest. This beast, looking at the gorilla of destruction that was almost identical to the gorillas he had seen in the natural world when he was a child, Ray Minkai slowly shook his head. If it was only in this wild state, I'm afraid it wouldn't be able to compete with the Lion Hunter. No, it should be the Lion Hunter Zero. The boiling river continued to roll, and the rising white steam became thicker and thicker. It was so thick that it could almost completely wrap the predator lion in it, making it impossible for the destruction gorilla to see the lion's full appearance. With the appearance of this scene, the destruction guardian seemed to have also discovered the intention of hunting the lion and even Ray Minkai. Roar! In the midst of the roar, the destruction guardian stretched out its arms and grabbed the few remaining big stones on the bank of the river and threw them toward the predator lion. At the same time, in the midst of the bursts of wind caused by the big stones, the destruction guardian was on all fours, setting off bursts of water and quickly rushed into the rising steam. Boom! Boom! At the moment when the destruction guardian was about to submerge into the steam, the two big stones that broke through the steam and went straight to the inside of the steam burst out two roars. It was the predator lion. It was the moment when the big stones were about to tear the steam apart. It smashed them in an unknown way. However, before the fragments of the two boulders fell on the water, the destructive guardian had already followed closely behind and pounced in front of the predator lion. The wind blew again. The destruction guardian's arms swung wildly, and like a high-speed windmill, it smashed down toward the predator lion. But, except for the first and second attacks that had an obvious feeling of hitting the object, the remaining attacks of the destruction guardian only had a terrifying momentum, but there was no substantial feeling of hitting the object before. Boom! Another roar exploded. Moreover, at the same time as this roar, the steam surrounding the destruction guardian quickly dissipated, no longer surrounding the destruction guardian and blocking its vision. However, just as the steam was about to dissipate, an orange-red lightning suddenly flashed and went straight to the left side of the destruction guardian at lightning speed. At this moment, the destruction guardian's arms just happened to hammer down, smashing into the boiling river and even smashing a deep pit in the riverbed. Coincidentally, at the moment when the deep pit appeared, the high splashes of water subtly blocked part of the destructive gorilla's line of sight, causing it to be unable to discover the lightning that pierced its left side at lightning speed in the first place. Bang! Crack! The orange-red lightning flashed, and it had already flashed past the destruction guardian's side. Then, as the lightning disappeared, the figure of the long-fanged lion appeared again. However, at this time, the long-fanged lion was not wearing the azure armor it was wearing before, but an orange-red armor equipped with 7 sharp blades. The long-fanged lion, Sanida, roar! Seeing that the destruction guardian had finally reacted and turned to face it, the long-fanged lion, who had changed into the Sanida armor, let out a provocative roar. Ayo! The provocation of the long-fanged lion, Sanida, undoubtedly continued to provoke the destruction guardian. However, when the destruction guardian raised its arms again and hammered its chest, its thick left arm suddenly exploded with a low and deep sound. Boom! Following the sound of the explosion, the destruction guardian's left arm actually struggled for a while and fell powerlessly, hanging by the side of the destruction guardian. It seemed that it could no longer make the destruction guardian unleash any more power. Roar! Seeing that its intention had succeeded, the long-fanged lion let out a long roar, showing its provocation even more straightforwardly. However, facing the long-fanged lion's straightforward provocation this time, the destruction guardian did not act like before, only beating its chest and pouncing on the long-fanged lion, trying to tear it apart. Instead, it raised its right arm and tightly gripped its left arm. Then, with a forceful pull, it tore off the left arm that had lost all its function as sparks flew. The destructive Vajra's actions made Lei Minkai involuntarily stunned. This was the first time Ray Minkai saw this scene on Sat's mechanical beast. In his memory, there seemed to be no situation where Sat's mechanical beast would tear off a part of its body. This destruction guardian was indeed strange. Be careful. As soon as the white cat's voice rang out, the long-fanged lion, Sanida, immediately jumped to the side and dodged from its original position. The wind blew violently, and a black shadow flew out from Sinida's original position like lightning. After drawing a deep mark on the ground, it stopped in the midst of the waves of hot air. Ray Minkai looked back and realized that the black shadow was the Destruction Guardian's left arm. And when Ray Minkai looked back at the Destruction Guardian again, a scene that surprised Ray Minkai appeared. Granulation. Granulation gushed out from the wound on the Destruction Guardian's broken arm without warning, and under the guidance of a certain law, it quickly converged into the shape of an arm on the left side of the Destruction Guardian. Regeneration ability? Is it the power of the abyss? The familiar scene in front of him made Ray Minkai confirm the strangeness of the Destruction Guardian and the power it possessed. And the white cat, State Zero, showed a ridiculing smile. How ridiculous! I didn't expect you, who regarded the abyss as your mortal enemy, to fall so low. How ridiculous! While the white cat, State Zero, was agitated, a trace of blood-red light suddenly appeared in its golden pupils. State Zero, calm down. If you don't want to see the Destruction Guardian controlled and destroyed by the abyss, then you should stay calm. Although Ray Minkai's memory of Soth's mechanical beast world was incomplete, he could hear the anger in the white cat's tone towards the Destruction Guardian being turned into a puppet of the abyss. The white cat, State Zero, showed a struggling expression and finally turned the anger in its heart into a cold snort. Ray Minkai did not say any comforting words again, but took direct action to show his determination. The long-toothed lion, Sinida, moved its feet and rushed out tens of meters. Once again, under the cover of the steam that had not completely dissipated, it tried to attack the Destruction Guardian again. However, Ray Minkai and the long-toothed lion, Sinida, did not achieve their goal. This was because not long after the long-toothed lion Nita began to move, it was surprised to discover that the ground within a radius of 50 meters had expanded outward with the Destruction Vajra, as the center was actually covered by strange roots at some point in time. And the source of these strange roots was the extension of the Destruction Guardian's new left arm. As soon as Sinida stepped into the range of these roots, it would immediately be attacked by the roots closest to it, causing it to be unable to move forward. TSK, is this a tortoise shell? When the long-toothed lion, Nita, turned around and tried to find the weakness of these strange tentacles, Lei Minkai cursed softly. Kai, use that move. The white cat, who had been silent for a while, suddenly suggested. That move? Are you serious? Ray Minkai was stunned and looked at the white cat, State Zero, in surprise. Yes, I am serious. Now, other than that move, there is no other way to break through the siege of those roots. The white cat, State Zero, turned around and looked at Ray Minkai as it spoke. As it spoke, Ray Minkai seemed to see that in the white cat's golden pupils, there was no trace of the blood-red light. Huh. Before the Fanged Lionita could make a move, the destructive Guardian King side had already taken the initiative to launch an attack, pressing towards the Fanged Lionita. In the blink of an eye, the strange roots around the Destruction Guardian twisted crazily and started to attack Sinida from the air and the ground. In the face of this overwhelming attack, the long-fanged lion, Nada, lowered its head and rushed out with all its strength. In the meantime, as the 5 swords extended from Sinida's head, visible energy sparks burst out from the gaps between the swords and quickly gathered in front of Sinida. In a few breaths, before the overwhelming roots hit Sinida, a sword formed from all the energy sparks was formed in the air, and with Sinida as the main body, it fiercely pierced forward. Rip! With the sound of cloth being torn apart, or perhaps the strange sound of metal being cut apart, the huge net formed by the roots was broken. The long-fanged lion, Shunida, pierced straight at the Destruction Vajra. Bang! Suddenly, there was a loud sound that sounded like metal clashing. The sword formed by Sinida stabbed in front of the Destruction Guardian's chest. As long as it moved forward by a little bit, the Destruction Guardian's chest would be pierced by Sinida's sword. However, even with this slight difference, the Longfang Lionita's blade was unable to advance even an inch further. The reason was still the Destruction Guardian's new left arm. Spiral, a prosthetic limb with a strange blade, kept extending from the new left forearm. It rushed to press on the blade of the long-fanged lion, Shunada, and grabbed it firmly. Isn't this the Death Guardian's move? Looking at the prosthetic left arm with a strange blade, Rei Minkai's eyes widened slightly, and he once again thought of the Death Guardian that appeared in The Origin of Mechanical Beasts. No, it's still the Destruction Guardian. It's just that it's not just the Destruction Guardian, but it's been artificially combined with several Guardians. Now, I can finally see its true face. White Cat State Zero took a deep breath and said the truth that it observed with mixed feelings. Chapter 229. A Hybrid. Who would have thought that the Destruction Gorilla was a hybrid of multiple gorillas? If it weren't for the weird prosthetic limb on the Destruction Gorilla's left arm, Rei Minkai and the White Cat State Zero would have thought that the Destruction Gorilla was just a mechanical beast that had been eroded by the abyss. Destruction Gorilla, Death Gorilla. Maybe there's also Combat Gorilla. Thinking of the Destruction Gorilla's fierce and powerful close-range attack ability, Rei Minkai guessed the third possibility. Maybe, but what we need to do now is to kill the Destruction Gorilla. The White Cat State Zero's voice was neither sad nor happy, and said very calmly, "This might be the final fate of the Destruction Gorilla." Yes, the sword that the long-toothed lion transformed and it suddenly grew by 3 times, and the weird limb that was stuck to the sword could no longer stop the sword from moving forward. In an instant, the distance that was only a hair's breadth was greatly reduced. The dark gray armor of the Destruction Gorilla also began to shine and heat up the moment the sword approached. Ga. The weird prosthetic limb kept howling in pain, and just as it was about to completely lose control of the sword, a black shadow suddenly appeared on top of the long-toothed lion's head. Boom! The moment the wind exploded, the black shadow had already smashed heavily on the sword that was condensed on top of the long-toothed lion's head. Boom! One strike fell, another strike rose. This black shadow was actually not afraid of the sharpness of the sword, and kept smashing, lifting, and smashing again. While it was crazily hammering the sword, Rei Minkai also saw the true face of this black shadow. It was an iron arm, the intact right arm of the Destruction Gorilla. Under the regenerative ability, the completely recovered right arm kept stirring up bursts of wind, bringing out energy sparks on the sword and crazily smashing on the sword. From the looks of it, it wouldn't stop until the sword blade formed by the long-toothed lion Shinida was broken. But at this moment, the blade had already touched the chest of the adamantine of destruction. The sharp blade had already broken through the outer armor of the adamantine of destruction. As long as it moved forward a little, then the blade of the long-fanged lion could directly pierce through the Z core of the adamantine of destruction. Roar! Roar! The Destruction Guardian was naturally aware of this. Thus, in addition to the right arm that was constantly smashing down, the left arm that was about to lose control of the sword suddenly changed. From the forearm to the arm, one after another, strange limbs that flickered with a cold light popped out. On these limbs, in addition to those sharp blades, there were also drills, awls, and other messy things. Buzz, buzz, buzz. As the strange limbs bared their fangs and brandished their claws, the saber of the long-fanged Lionida was once again stopped in its tracks. It was once again restrained by the increasing number of strange limbs. Seeing that the sword blade was stopped, the Destruction Guardian couldn't help but let out a series of roars, and its right arm hammered down on the sword blade with even more force. TSK, no matter if it was before or after becoming a puppet of the Abyss, you are still so stubborn. The White Cat State Zero snorted coldly and turned to look at Rei Minkai. Kai, do it. All right, Ka. Driven by his right arm, the Destructive Guardian's heavy right fist hammered violently on the blade, and a crack finally appeared on the blade. However, before the Destruction Guardian could feel excited about this result, the long-fanged lion Nita disappeared. The blade that was about to pierce through the Z-core of the Destruction Guardian was still there, but the target of the blade, the long-fanged lion Nita, had disappeared. The Destruction Guardian, who had been waving its right arm and trying to resolve the attack of the long-fanged lion Nita, did not know when the long-fanged lion Nita disappeared from its sight. Clearly, that sword blade was still there. Bang! Suddenly, a strong force exploded from the back of the Destruction Guardian and forcefully pushed the Destruction Guardian one step forward. Walala! The Destruction Guardian's stumbling steps brought up waves of steaming water, and half of its body was wet. This was not a big deal for the Destruction Guardian. The only thing that made the Destruction Guardian feel a chill was that the blade had advanced again when it was stumbling forward and had almost pierced through the Z-core. Roar! The Destruction Guardian was furious at this moment. It finally understood that it had been fooled. In fact, the Z-core had almost been pierced through by the other party's teasing. Under extreme anger, the blade that had lost the control of the long-fanged lion Nita could still maintain its form for a while, but it could no longer compete with the Destruction Guardian's left arm that was full of strange limbs. Bang! Kacha! The strange limbs exerted force together, and the blade formed by the long-fanged lion Nita was instantly shattered. At the same time, the Destruction Guardian turned around abruptly amidst the fragments of the blade and raised its giant palm to slap behind it. Bang! When the air that was compressed to the extreme by the giant palm exploded, the Destruction Guardian realized that there was nothing behind it. Even further away, there was a beast figure in dark green armor. Long-fanged lion. Bangja! The reason why the long-fanged lion Nita had suddenly disappeared was because it had taken advantage of the opportunity brought by the blade to restrain the Destruction Guardian. It had quickly turned back into the long-fanged lion and circled behind the Destruction Guardian. Then long-fanged lion Bangja. Bangja's heavy armor was the heaviest among all the armor forms of the long-fanged lion State Zero. Therefore, after turning into Bangja's form, the long-fanged lion's mobility was almost reduced to zero. This was undoubtedly a risk. However, Ray Minkai and White Cat State Zero were quite confident. Roar! As soon as the Destruction Guardian saw the long-fanged lion Bangja, it immediately rushed over like the wind. It knew that if it allowed the long-fanged lion Bangja to attack, it would probably suffer a fatal blow. In fact, that was indeed the case. The Destruction Guardian's reaction was not slow, but Ray Minkai and White Cat State Zero, who had planned it beforehand, were even faster. When the Destruction Guardian turned around and rushed over, the two cannons on the long-fanged lion Bangja's back had already locked onto the Destruction Guardian's figure. With a pull of the trigger, the powerful recoil brought about by the two cannons fiercely pushed the long-toothed lion Bonza back a large distance. In the blink of an eye, it crossed the distance of less than a kilometer and accurately hit the Destruction Gorilla. Boom! Boom! Two brilliant sparks bloomed on the Destruction Guardian's body almost at the same time. Its new left arm, the left arm that was full of strange limbs, followed in the footsteps of its predecessor. Under the bombardment of the cannons, it was broken off completely and was blown far away, rolling on the riverbed. The other cannon hit the right side of the Destruction Guardian's chest and blew a hole in it, exposing more than half of the Z-core. This was undoubtedly a serious injury. If the cannon's axis of attack had deviated a little more to the left, the Z-core would have been hit directly. Under the serious injury, the Destruction Guardian went berserk. Roar! Roar! In the midst of the crazy roar, the Destruction Guardian's eyes emitted red flames. Under the dark gray, uneven armor, traces of fiery red streamers also appeared, as if the Destruction Guardian was about to be swallowed by the flames from the inside out. Boom! The air exploded. Under the oppressive, uncomfortable fluctuation, the Destruction Guardian was instantly shrouded in a cloud of fiery red streamer smoke. And the objects that came into contact with this smoke, whether it was stones, river water, or even the fish that came down from upstream would instantly dry up, turn into dust, and disappear from this world. Abyss. As soon as he saw this scene, Ray Minkai immediately opened the Abyss detection module of his personal terminal. The Abyss level displayed above was 2.9. It was still exactly the same as the result of the previous Osher's explosion. How is this possible? Facing this result, Ray Minkai was surprised. The Destruction Guardian's current appearance was no different from the aura that Asmodai had previously displayed. But why was Asmodai detected as an Abyss level 3 or above, while the current Destruction Guardian and even the previous Ashura remained above the number 2.9? I'm afraid the enemy's tactics have changed. White Cat State Zero calmly stated a possibility, and this possibility was the most likely one. The enemy did not always use the same tactics. Under the situation where the agency was attacking everywhere to clear the Abyss, these enemies hidden in the dark were constantly strengthening their tactics and developing more new technologies. It seems that we can't call for backup for the time being. Ray Minkai put down his personal terminal and smiled slightly. Isn't this good? At least we won't break the record for the first time to call for backup on our first mission. White Cat State Zero made a rare joke. That's true. The next moment, all the missile pods on the long-toothed lion Bang Ja's body opened, and the ammunition of the two cannons was poured out in one breath when the full ammunition was fired. Immediately afterward, as the smoke from the missiles and the smoke from the fierce cannon bombardment drowned the Destruction Guardian, the long-toothed lion Bang Ja's body shook, and the heavy Bang Ja armor on its body was completely removed in a few breaths. Boom! Boom! His swoosh. The overly heavy armor would cause the long-toothed lion Bang Ja to be in a state of overload, but at this moment, the long-toothed lion Bang Ja, who had removed the armor, quickly stepped forward and rushed into the woods not far away. Roar! The fiery red smoke dispersed the fireball, and the Destruction Guardian's footsteps also stopped in front of the Bang Ja armor that was scattered on the ground, but most of it had disappeared. The Destruction Guardian looked down at the two cannons that had completely disappeared and suddenly lowered its head, revealing the lump that was quickly condensing under the influence of the fiery red smoke on its back. As the lump surged, it turned into two huge cannons. From the appearance of these two cannons, one could be shocked to discover that apart from some differences in size, the other parts of these two cannons were exactly the same as the two cannons carried on the back of the long-toothed lion Bonza. The Destruction Guardian could perfectly replicate the cannons of the long-toothed lion Bang Ja just by visual observation and personal experience of the power of these two cannons. How is this possible? For this question, the Destruction Guardian directly took action to prove it. The fiery red smoke quickly condensed into two dazzling balls of light in front of the muzzle of the cannons, and two blood-red beams of light tore through the sky and attacked the forest where the long-toothed lion Bang Ja had disappeared. Strangely, where the blood-red beam passed, there was no burning and explosion, but all the trees that came into contact with the blood-red beam quickly withered and eventually turned into ashes. What kind of attack is this? The location of the Destruction Guardian's attack was not the area where the long-toothed lion Bang Ja was located, so the long-toothed lion Bang Ja, who was hiding on the other side, clearly saw the strange and terrifying scene. Abyss. Our hometown has been eroded like this. The white cat Bang Ja revealed a look of anger, mixed with a trace of fear. Has it been swallowed? Ray Minkai's brows were also tightly knitted. Even though he had lost most of his memories, Ray Minkai still felt a familiar sense of sadness when he saw the forest that had withered and turned into ashes. But Ray Minkai and the white cat Bang Ja knew that sadness would not bring victory, and only by fighting hard could they grasp victory. A blue light flashed, and the long-toothed lion Bang Ja reappeared. With the cover of the forest, the long-toothed lion Bang Ja, which had an unparalleled mobility advantage, once again appeared behind the Destruction Guardian. When the long-toothed lion Bang Ja leaped up, Its laser claws also bloomed with dazzling golden light. Bang! Bang! Once again, the long-toothed lion Bang Ja's laser claws accurately hit the giant cannon on the back of the Destruction Guardian. Two claw marks that almost destroyed the cannon were deeply engraved on the back of the Destruction Guardian. Boom! When the cannon exploded, the long-toothed lion Bang Ja landed on the ground and accelerated to the other side of the Destruction Guardian, avoiding the giant palm of the Destruction Guardian. Buzz! Suddenly, the left shoulder of the Destruction Guardian that had lost its left arm suddenly rolled. The moment the long-toothed lion Bang Ja flashed to its left, a cannon with a diameter of about half a meter was condensed. Before the long-toothed lion Bang Ja could react, the cannon was fired. Boom! It hit. Since the beginning of the battle, the Destruction Guardian finally hit the body of the long-toothed lion Bang Ja. But even if it hit, so what? The orange lightning flashed and broke through the exploding fireball. In the blink of an eye, it rushed to the left side of the Destruction Guardian and deeply pierced the body of the Destruction Guardian with 5 incomparably sharp blades. Destruction Chop. Ray Minkai pushed with his right hand, and the 2 big swords on the back of the long-toothed lion Bang Ja were instantly raised, crossed over the top of his head, and firmly blocked the Destruction Guardian's huge iron fist on the head of the long-toothed lion Bang Ja. At the same time, the long-toothed lion Bang Ja exerted force, and the 5 blades that had been deeply pierced into the body of the Destruction Guardian tore through layers of obstacles, hit the bullseye, and smashed the Z-core of the Destruction Guardian into pieces. Chapter 230. Failed. Forget about the beautiful figure from before. She didn't expect that the third target, which even Dr. Zasali valued, would also fail. It didn't even have the chance to escape the battle before it died under the lion's sword. No. Phyllis frowned slightly. She was holding the emergency controller that Dr. Zasali gave her. Its function was to force the 2 targets brought by Phyllis to retreat to the safe area when something went wrong or something unexpected happened. However, from the moment the battle between the third target and the lion began and the first danger appeared, Phyllis had secretly pressed the controller in an attempt to make the third target retreat. Winning or losing here didn't matter. The important thing was that the doctor's experimental target was intact, and the third target was the most important. However, no matter how many times Phyllis pressed the control command was as silent as a stone sinking into the sea. What's going on? There shouldn't be a problem with the doctor's masterpiece. Phyllis frowned deeply as she looked at the Destruction Guardian in front of the long-toothed lion. Phyllis's face was full of confusion. At this moment, Phyllis's personal terminal rang urgently. Phyllis was shocked and immediately pressed the connect button on the personal terminal. That's enough. Phyllis, follow His Majesty's plan and retreat immediately. What happened in Europe has nothing to do with us. As soon as Dr. Zasali's head popped up, an order that surprised Phyllis also sounded. Phyllis showed a surprised expression, but she didn't ask. After nodding, she put away the personal terminal and looked up at the attendant waiting by the side. The next action will be carried out according to His Majesty's orders. I will be ordered to return to Pandora. If there is anything you don't understand, you can go to Andre Farnese of the San Rafael Knight Legion. Yes, Sir Envoy. I wish you a safe journey. Under the respectful escort of the attendants, Phyllis left the mothership and got on the command vehicle back to Catherine Palace. As the mothership gradually shrank, Phyllis couldn't help but sneer in her heart. The reason why Dr. Zasali allowed Phyllis to retreat alone at this crucial moment of victory and defeat was none other than because the Emperor was no longer concerned about Europa's offensive. At least, he was no longer as concerned as before. The reason for this was most likely because Dr. Zasali had made a new breakthrough in his research. On the other side of the ocean, the imperial capital of Pandora, His Majesty slowly closed his eyes, no longer paying attention to the battle that had already been decided on the screen. Doctor, are you feeling sorry for your test subject? The emperor was not angry because of the loss of his own side. Instead, he was concerned about the loss of his allies. No, thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. Although I lost 2 precious experimental subjects, I was able to help Your Majesty find out the obstacles that are blocking our path. Dr. Sisali, who was standing at the side, said calmly with a shake of his head. For him, he had lost at least hundreds of experimental subjects when he decided to study the abyss, if not thousands. With the sacrifice of so many experimentals, Sisali's mind had already become numb. Therefore, his regret for his loss was far lower than his expectations for how much new data he could obtain from the experiment. Is that so? The emperor smiled gently and slightly showed a smile of agreement. That's true. It's also because of the sacrifice of the experimental subjects sent by you, Doctor, that we can obtain the information we want. That's a good point. After the emperor affirmed the contribution of his allies, he slowly stood up from the throne. I didn't expect that when Euphemia left this world to travel to a new world, she also brought variables back to this world. This is our negligence. The emperor lifted his feet and slowly walked down the stairs in front of the throne. The doctor, Cesare, followed behind him. However, this oversight isn't a big deal to us now. At the very least, in our list of actions, their existence is not our priority. Speaking of this, the emperor showed a mocking smile. Of course, this is limited to them not coming to trouble me. However, this was impossible. Doctor, don't you think so? Dr. Sisali frowned slightly and found that things were just as the emperor said. It was obviously impossible for Euphemia and Rei Minkai's group to not cause trouble for him. Not to mention C, and Lena, who were forcibly brought back to Pandora by the emperor. The existence of his doctor and assistant, Phyllis, was enough to attract Rei Minkai and Euphemia, who seemed to have become members of the agency. Thinking of this, the doctor sighed secretly. He found that, after thinking about it, the only way to decipher C's world as quickly as possible was to take the initiative in the subsequent actions. Your Majesty, are you really going to leave Europe alone? Although Sisali already had a clear understanding in his heart, he still asked the question. It's just Europe. As long as they want it, then give it to them. Although Euphemia, Cornelia, and a Lionite are there, that's the territory of Langlan Shi. The emperor didn't care about the gains and losses of Europe. After getting information about the tusked lion and Rei Minkai, the emperor retracted most of his attention and refocused on C's world. Doctor, how sure are you? Sisali showed a confident smile. It's not 10%, but it's 70%. I didn't expect that at this critical moment, the key would relent. CC, she relented, but it doesn't mean that she has obeyed us. This woman is not an ordinary woman, but an immortal witch. Which? Sisali raised his eyebrows, somewhat disapproving. In his memory, among the people he knew, only she, the Scarlet Queen who controlled the castle, could be called the witch. Don't underestimate her. Doctor. Although the emperor verbally told the doctor not to take it lightly, he himself was the same as the doctor, disapproving of the hidden things behind CC. As relenting. Because the emperor had seen similar scenes too many times in other parallel worlds. Let's go. Let me see the doctor's results. I can't wait to enter C's world and talk to Charles. The camera returned to the battlefield between the tusked lion and the destructive gorilla. The destructive gorilla, whose Z-core was smashed by the blade, lost all signs of movement and fell powerlessly in front of the tusked lion. It's over. Sitting in the cockpit, Rei Minkai slowly breathed a sigh of relief as he watched the river flow past the destructive gorilla. Yes, it's over. The white cat nodded, but in the next moment, its figure suddenly flashed and disappeared from the cockpit. When it reappeared, it was on the wreckage of the destructive gorilla. State 0, did you find anything? Although Rei Minkai was puzzled by the sudden appearance of the white cat on the wreckage of the destructive gorilla, he still carefully checked the surrounding situation. After confirming that there would be no enemies in a short time, He let the tusked lion lower its head and open the cockpit next to the wreckage of the destructive gorilla. Here, the white cat did not look back. It only stretched out its right front paw and pointed at the smashed Z-core of the destructive gorilla. Ray Minkai, who was confused, walked down from the cockpit and came to the Z-core. When he looked inside, he saw a fragment the size of a coin lying quietly in the middle of the smashed Z-core. This is an information fragment. At first glance, Ray Minkai did not find out what this small thing was. But after careful observation, Ray Minkai was surprised to find out what this small thing was. No, it's not an information fragment. The White Cat State Zero gave a different answer. Then, the White Cat State Zero jumped and landed on the broken Z-core. It lowered its head and held the small fragment in its mouth, then jumped back to Ray Minkai's feet. Look, the White Cat State Zero handed the fragment to Ray Minkai. When Ray Minkai's right hand touched the fragment, images suddenly appeared in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. In the beginning, Ray Minkai did not see the images that flashed in front of his eyes. But after Ray Minkai reacted, the images that flashed in front of his eyes brought some information to Ray Minkai. Laboratory. It was full of large and small experimental instruments. There was also a man in a white coat, standing alone in front of the experimental instruments and fiddling with them. In addition, Ray Minkai also saw a symbol covered by these experimental instruments. A V-shaped symbol that looked like a flying bird spreading its wings. As soon as this symbol appeared, Ray Minkai was kicked back to reality. Ray Minkai was shocked. Before he could speak, the White Cat State Zero's question followed. Kai, did you see anything? Ray Minkai pondered for a while and nodded slowly. I did see something. What is it? Ray Minkai's lips moved. After pondering for a while, he said slowly, I saw the truth of this world. The truth? Yes. Ray Minkai nodded and looked back in the direction of Langlon West. From now on, the gains and losses of Europa are no longer important. We must rush back to White Wolf Fort immediately. As the two red and green signal flares rose into the sky, Euphemia, Cornelia, and the others on this side of the battlefield were immediately attracted by the two signal flares. That's Kai's signal. Sitting in the pirate Gauda's cockpit, Euphemia's eyes flashed with a light as she covered Cornelia, and Veretta led Department Q to recover the wreckage of the strange body. UFFI. What does this signal flare mean? Obviously, Cornelia still did not know the purpose of the red and green signal flares. Sister Royal, retreat immediately. Everyone return to White Wolf Fort. Also, tie a bomb to this wreckage and throw it here to destroy it. Euphemia retracted her gaze from the signal flare that rose into the air and said the decision that she had discussed with Ray Minkai earlier. Destroy it? Don't you want to bring it back and let Royd study it? Cornelia was slightly surprised and said subconsciously. Cornelia and Veretta naturally saw the battle between the pirate Gauda and the strange body. The maneuverability of the strange body was still fresh in Cornelia's memory. No, if you want to study it, I have more, better technology and samples here. Let's just destroy this wreckage. Euphemia shook her head and signaled for everyone to stop what they were doing. After throwing back the parts and components that were dismantled earlier, the work of disposing of the wreckage began. Boom! After a loud explosion, the pirate Gauda, Messiah, Eva Base, and the other bodies that formed the team quickly retreated in the direction of White Wolf Fort. UFFI. What exactly happened? According to the original battle plan, we shouldn't be retreating now, right? Cornelia asked what everyone was thinking. I don't know either. However, since Guy's already sent out the retreat signal, then it means that this battle has already become unimportant. Euphemia shook her head and didn't reveal too much information. It wasn't that Euphemia didn't trust Cornelia and Veretta, but because the truth of the matter would have a huge impact on the entire Q department. Euphemia still chose to reveal the entire plan to Cornelia and Veretta in a private conversation later. Beep beep. As the team moved forward, Messiah and Valkyrie's personal encrypted channel rang with the sound of communication. After Cornelia and Veretta glanced at each other through the screen, They turned off the team's channel in unison and switched to their personal, encrypted channel. Royal Sister Veretta. From now on, the information that I say, temporarily don't reveal it to anyone other than the three of us. As soon as she opened her mouth, Euphemia said something that made Cornelia and Veretta's hearts tighten. As the imperial princess, as an imperial official, they naturally knew what Euphemia's words meant. Understood. Please say. Cornelia and Veretta said in unison. Hearing that, Euphemia nodded and then revealed all the secrets of this world. Royal Sister Veretta. This world isn't as simple as what we see. In the corner that we can't see and can't touch, there's another world. And the existence of this world can affect the operation of the real world that we're in. And this world hidden in the dark side, we call it World C. So you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.